the hell is she doing? Eating in bed.
Yeah, it has been a test for sure. F on me, right?
Milker. Or Melina. I'm talking to Melina. Hi.
Huh?
What's up?
What's up?
I called you Milker.
Huh?
I called you Milker. But I'm talking to you,
You're calling yourself.
not your
Milker,
friend.
milkers.
What?
Huh? You gonna come here?
No, I'm busy. I'm working.
Okay.
What's your family called? Is it Melina?
Oh, this is because then I can.
Yep.
How'd you get the original name?
All right.
Smart.
Wow.
What's your name?
Refilled this once.
Some of
Let's
us have to
try it
actually
again.
work for a living. Why didn't she say hi to me?
Hada?
Hada? What does that mean?
What?
What?
What is it?
What is
So
what?
What is it?
Oh.
Can I hear it?
What's up? Did you have fun at the beach?
Sure.
What do you mean by sure?
It's nice.
Did you put on sunscreen? Cancer
Actually
Mel.
ran out of sunscreen, so. Good shower.
Ask Melina if she remembers when you were shitting on Fansly girls for being too pussy to just use OnlyFans because of the stigma. True. That's why she's starting an OnlyFans soon. Get ready, guys.
Just tell me what to feel.
New Spider-Verse
What's up?
trailer.
Any infected around?
I almost feel like they shouldn't make a sequel
Oh,
because,
more orders.
god damn, this original movie was maybe perfect or close to it.
What?
My name is Miles Morales. I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man. And things are going great.
Oh yeah, you were supposed to be here at 5.
All right, whatever.
Whatever.
Wow.
Whatever?
So are you like a cow or a Dalmatian?
I am the Spot. It's not funny.
Don't do that.
Miles's grades are pretty good. A in AP Physics
That's my little man.
and a B in Spanish.
What? Okay. Miles. Are you trying?
Oh no!
I gotta go. All right, bye.
He's lying to you, and I think you know it.
He's gay. Oh my god. That's why he didn't get with the girl in the first movie.
Miles! Wanna get out of here?
That one.
When? So wait a minute. There's an elite crew with all the best spider people in it?
Who's the new guy?
This is unbelievable.
This is the lobby.
Miguel O'Hara. The whole thing was his idea.
What's a guy gotta do to join this spider team?
You can never be part of this.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 1999-99.
Come on, go easy on the kid. He had a terrible teacher.
Peter,
Miles! Mayday!
you have a baby?
I have a baby.
Am I supposed to know that guy? This guy? The Chad dude?
Miles, being Spider-Man is a sacrifice. You have a choice between saving one person and saving every world. Send me home. I can't do that.
I can do both. Spider-Man always.
Not always.
What about Uncle Ben?
If not for Uncle Ben, most of us wouldn't be here.
Can't stop me now!
Wait, did he have an Uncle Ben in his? He didn't, right? It's Spider-Man 2099.
It was his uncle.
Miguel, this isn't what we talked about.
You knew?
I have no idea what you're doing!
Oh shit, this is copyrighted. It's a fucking movie trailer. Why would you put a movie trailer on Auto DMCA? Don't you want people to watch your shit? Why is the FPS in this movie so low? It's a stylistic thing. His uncle was a villain? Yeah, but it wasn't Ben. I think that the FPS of the characters is like twice as much as the background. The movie, it looks so good. Fuck you, you're such a fucking retard. If you watched this first Spider-Man, you didn't think it looked amazing. Something's wrong with you, okay? Thoughts on them using stable diffusion filters? I don't know, I haven't seen the movie yet. I am really happy that I saw the first movie in theaters. Fuck, that first movie was so fucking good. Fuck. Let me get a Red Bull and say hi to my wife and shit. 1 second.
Who do you want me to punish?
This better be good.
Attention.
Yes.
Building completed.
All right. Last night I dreamt of brains exploding. Doesn't matter the news, I will lose some brains. Who do you want me to punish?
Attention. Building completed.
Last night I dreamt of brains
Building
exploding.
completed.
Death, lovely death. Yes, tell me what to kill.
What? Oh, this neat on all.
him for $100,000.
There we go.
Gonna be the craziest video you've ever.
Oh no. Wait, what is this subreddit? OnlyFans advice? Wonderful ladies or gents, I've been doing OnlyFans every single day for a little over 3 months now. I just want to ask how long did it take to get to the point where you made a good amount of money from OnlyFans? I'm still very new and learning things every day. I do research still to learn and improve. I've been steadily growing. Sometimes I get a little discouraged when I push out promotion every single day and haven't gone viral on anything. So far I've got no more than 7 subs in one day. By no means am I complaining, as I know the job is extremely competitive since blah blah blah.
Food.
Jesus.
Oh, that's...
Okay, so the video's title is a little misleading. Emphasis on the real assassin, not the really killing me part of that title. Mr. Beast did not hire a real assassin to really try and kill him. The assassin was not really going to kill Jimmy. He does not have a death wish, as far as I know. But what would happen legally if he had hired a real assassin to actually kill him?
Oh shit, he's gonna bring up, is he gonna bring up a case? Wasn't there a guy that got in legal trouble for hiring somebody to kill himself? I think it's actually illegal.
Now, if you're one of the 12 people who haven't seen Mr. Beast's video, here's a quick summary. Over the course of 10 hours, Mr. Beast engages in a very expensive game of cat and mouse to elude his would-be fake assassin across 5 different locations.
Inside this car's backpack is not only 100 grand, but also a tracker giving him my real-time location.
Among Mr. Beast's exorbitant expenditures include getting a tank to run over the assassin's car, checking into every single room in a hotel and filling them with distractions, using a Lamborghini and helicopter to escape, blowing up a real bank, and building his own carnival.
Jesus
At the end of the video,
Christ!
Mr. Beast did give his opponent a sporting chance by faking an ankle injury at the carnival to see if the assassin would still stab him.
Got all this for a broken ankle, huh? Yeah.
Wait, what's going on in these Mr. Beast videos? Do I need to start watching this shit? Wait, what?
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
Yeah, I don't know about that. obvious. Let's go!
Which of course he did with a fake knife. But Mr. Beast is a man of his word and paid the $100,000 bounty.
Here's your $100,000. This means a lot to me and my family. Thank you.
Now, of course, this was all just a very expensive and entertaining stunt, but it does raise an interesting legal issue. Is it a crime to actually take a hit out against yourself? And you'd be surprised, or maybe not surprised, how often this comes up on Reddit. So let's dive right in. Is it illegal for Mr. Beast to actually pay someone
Lay
to
Reddit
kill?
XD.
Short answer, yes. Longer answer, absolutely. It's 100% a crime. But the question of which laws would have been broken by Mr. Beast and his hired assassin is a more interesting question.
I did once try to kill the world's greatest lover, but then I realized there are laws against suicide.
So let's start with the laws against suicide. Now, the former...
Quick reminder, okay? Quick note for all you youngins out there. A lot of old people like me talk about this show that used to exist, okay? It doesn't anymore. Anybody that says different, it's called The Simpsons, okay? Do not let old losers gaslight you into thinking that show was ever good. It wasn't. It was never a good show. The Simpsons is not, has not, and will not ever be funny, okay? Full stop.
Mayor of Springfield is partially right. In British common law, suicide used to be a felony, while attempted suicide was a misdemeanor, which sort of makes no sense at all. But historically, those who successfully took their own lives would be buried in a public highway with a stake driven through their body, and by forfeiture would surrender the remaining possessions to the king. Yikes. But in the United States, suicide is no longer considered a statutory crime, but some states still criminalize an unsuccessful attempt. In 2018, Maryland made news after a 56-year-old man pleaded guilty to one charge of attempted suicide and was sentenced to a 3-year suspended jail sentence and 2 years of probation.
Jesus.
Maryland recognizes a common law crime like attempted suicide that have no specific penalty, leaving it up to the judge to decide the punishment. And according to the prosecutor, this charge was, quote, not something I've seen before, and not something he'd pursue in the future. Quote, it's not like we're trying to put this guy in jail or anything, we're just trying to get him into a mental health treatment. Now, naturally, critics felt that giving a mentally ill man a criminal record under the guise of helping him was an abuse of prosecutorial discretion. But that's first-party suicide, and as far as I can tell from Mr. Beast's video, he did not wish to take his own life, so he hired someone else. Theoretically. And states have generally made it a crime to help people end their own lives, even with the deceased's consent. This includes both physician-assisted suicide, in which a doctor administers a lethal dose of medication, as well as assisted suicide outside of the medical context. And only 10 states and the District of Columbia allow for physician-assisted suicide. And many of the states have strict requirements and procedures that must be followed for the doctor to avoid homicide charges, such as requiring the patient to be a state resident, have fewer than 6 months to live, and be given many opportunities to change their mind. To legally end a person's life without jumping through any hoops, you'd have to become a police officer. But outside of these jurisdictions, individuals who end another person's life will face criminal charges, even if done with the deceased's permission. Of course, many people remember the trials of Dr. Kevorkian, who helped with many instances.
Not really, but we get the joke.
Physician-assisted suicide. And in January 2023, an elderly woman was arrested for shooting her terminally ill husband at the hospital as part of a murder-suicide pact they made weeks prior. Though she could have been indicted for murder, she was hit with lesser charges of assisting self-murder/manslaughter and aggravated assault of a law enforcement officer. But of course, suicide is one thing. Hiring a contract killer to kill anyone, including yourself, is a completely different matter. Legal Eagle breaking news, it is illegal to murder people. But if you're learning this for the first time, you probably need to hire a lawyer like.
Wait, is he called Legal Eagle? Is that not even an eagle? Is it like a crow? Why would he not have an eagle flying in his videos? But his name is Legal Eagle.
Yesterday. And since it's a crime to murder people, it's also illegal to hire someone to commit murder. The crime of contract killing, aka murder for hire, occurs when one party hires another to kill a targeted individual or group of people in exchange for some pecuniary benefit. However, any agreement to commit murder would be an illegal contract and therefore not legally enforceable. So if someone welches on your murder contract, don't expect a court to help you get your money back. And typically this is charged as a state crime, though penalties vary by jurisdiction. In Florida, where this happens just as often as you'd think, the hirer faces a life sentence if—
Wait, so murder is, most crimes are state crimes. Murder is a state crime. Does that mean theoretically, could you legalize murder or make it not illegal, decriminalize murder in like the state of like, say, Alaska? Would that like get challenged in the Supreme Court, or like how the, where's Pisco at?
if the
Or
victim
esports
is actually
Batman.
killed, and a maximum of 20 years if the victim is injured but not killed. And if the murder plot is formed but the victim isn't injured or killed, the potential sentence is about 10 years. And as you may recall, Joe Exotic, aka the Tiger King, is currently serving a 21-year prison sentence for trying to hire two different men, one of whom was an undercover FBI agent, to
Linneo.
kill his nemesis and animal rights activist, Carol Baskin. And here, federal jurisdiction was established because the scheme involved interstate travel and commerce. Specifically, Joe Exotic gave the first hitman $3,000 to travel from Oklahoma to South Carolina, and then to Dallas in furtherance of the murder plot. And murder for hire plots typically involve killing a third party. But what happens if the intended victim is yourself? And while hiring an assassin to take out yourself doesn't happen in real life that much, if you search suicide by hitman on IMDb, you'll see nearly 24 movies and TV shows using this trope. Most famously, this plotline takes center stage in the criminally underrated Bulworth. In this 1998 political satire, Warren Beatty plays a depressed US senator who decides to end his life, then takes out a $10 million life insurance policy, naming his daughter as the beneficiary. Knowing that suicide would void the policy, the senator then hires a hitman to kill him. And of course, that's also the plot to the Chevy Chase movie Fletch. I'm sure all the kids watching Mr. Beast remember Fletch.
Now, how long have you had these canes, Mr. Barber?
Let's go.
No, that's Babar. 2B?
Just give me something to shoot.
1B. B-A-B-A-R. That's two.
Yeah, but not right next to each other. I thought that's what you meant.
Right?
What?
You know, it's a good movie. And that's actually not too far off from what actually happened in South Carolina very recently in real life. Alec Murdaugh, who in March of 2023 was found guilty in the double homicide of his wife and son.
Federal
was
law for
previously
murder?
caught
Is
up
there-
in a
is there
failed
federal laws
suicide
against
for
murder?
hire scheme to have his cousin Eddie shoot him to death. And in that case of
Other units to bother? What? You are gonna pay me for this, right? You call that a plan?
Oh.
What?
In Canada, yes. Wait, this is the US. This is the US code.
Yeah. Roger that.
If there's federal laws against murder, how do you decide who gets jurisdiction to prosecute for murder? Who joined?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's me.
Okay.
Yeah, there are federal laws for murder. Yes, you can be prosecuted for it. Just see the DC area sniper. Usually they only prosecute for federal murder when you're crossing state lines. So, or when your murder spree crosses state lines, of serial killers and stuff like that will often get tried under it. But generally speaking, they're going to defer to the states for state crimes.
Who is going to let's say that you get like tried for murder and like what is like the federal punishment? Is it like the death penalty or?
Yeah.
Where would you get executed at?
Depends on what federal penitentiary you get sent to. There are a number that are separate from the states. Usually they'll do, how should I put this? Usually they'll discuss how they want to strategize for murder charges. So like the DC area sniper was a good example where there are certain states that don't have the death penalty and then certain states that do. So they'll try, if you commit multiple crimes in multiple states, they'll usually try the states that do not have the death penalty first to get that all out of the way, and then they'll worry about the death penalty later on down the line, so that they know you're at least life in prison without parole.
Do you did you live in DC during that sniper shit?
Yes, I did.
That was a wild time. Do you remember? Was that related at all to like terrorism, or was it just a crazy couple of dudes?
Yeah. It was a crazy couple of dudes, but it was also somewhat related to terrorism.
I'm sorry, let me be more specific. I meant like Al-Qaeda.
I think they were influenced, but I don't think they're like actually members of Al-Qaeda. I just remember the vivid thing was I was in high school at the time, so we always had to be indoors. We couldn't go out. Usually in high school back then, we could hang outside during lunch or before school or after school. You couldn't do that. And there was always the rumor of a white van, right? So you always got, everybody's freaked out anytime they saw a white van because they thought they were going to get shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole Maryland, DC, Virginia area was pretty much on lockdown. You couldn't do anything during that time, and it was kind of weird. But
it's kind of wild that like a lot of people was this in 2002? Do you remember?
Probably. I want to say maybe 2003.
End of 2002. A lot of people don't remember this, but one of the scariest things after. Wait, how old are you?
I'm 36.
Okay, I'm 34. One of the scariest things after 9/11 was that people thought that we were about to get like infinitely terroristed.
Yes.
Right? Because there was the anthrax shit afterwards, and not many people talk about it anymore. Well, I guess you probably know it. Yeah, and then that sniper, that DC sniper, people thought that it was like gonna be like the end of the fucking United States because we were just gonna get like infinitely terrorist attacked for like ever. It was a wild time. Holy shit.
The whole thing was really scary for like people living in that area because, for instance, a lot of kids that I grew up with had parents or family members who either worked for the government in DC or worked at like military bases, because I grew up not too far from Fort Meade. So that whole thing was always a thing. I remember just like having to go anywhere like crowded, especially outdoors, was a particularly like weird thing to do, and people were always kind of like skittish about it for the longest time. And then the anthrax stuff, the DC area sniper, there were constantly discussions of like, are we getting off of school for this thing? Like,
yeah.
I remember we got sent home early on 9/11, and the day after we had off, because they were worried after DC had been struck that because you were so close to both Annapolis and Fort Meade, they were like, okay, these are like obviously attractive targets for terrorist attacks, so we're going to give you guys a couple days off and figure out what the hell's going on, and then we'll let you go back to school.
I thought it was so crazy because everybody was so scared about like being outside or doing anything, and all I remember was because I was friends with Dan at the time, and he would like send me all these videos of him and his friends like outside like dancing and shit. And I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, I didn't. It didn't bother me, but that was. So there used to be a huge anime convention, and in Baltimore, it moved to DC. But I remember like during that time period, one of the reasons why they didn't move to DC was because they acknowledged the place was bigger than Baltimore. They didn't want to deal with all the extra security for DC. They said, like people wouldn't be allowed to wear masks. People wouldn't be allowed to like go in certain types of costumes. There'd be metal detectors all over the place. They were just like, it's not worth the extra insurance. It's not worth the extra security measures and all the extra costs related to that. Yeah, we have a smaller venue to deal with, but it's less problems.
Like when Drake said he was going to go to his high school reunion and make everybody have to go through security clearance. I remember that, you know. That was 9/11 in a nutshell, yeah. But okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no, I mean, that it was just kind of interesting to grow up around that time, so yeah. But yeah, typically federal murder is for cross-state line stuff, or terrorism. That's another big one that they'll get you on. See the Boston bombers, obviously.
Okay.
And that's about it.
All right, well, cool. Have fun. Be careful.
Take it easy.
Life imitating art, Murdoch arranged for his own failed murder so his son Buster could, like Bulworth, collect on the $10 million life insurance policy. Except when cousin Eddie tried to shoot Murdoch, the bullet only grazed his head. In 2021, the grand jury indicted the cousins for their suicide for hire scheme. Cousin Eddie was charged with assisted suicide, assault and battery of a high aggravated nature, appointing and presenting a firearm, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Murdoch was charged with insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false police report. Notably, Murdoch was not charged with murder for hire or with any crime related to the actual suicide for hire, just the crimes surrounding the scheme like insurance fraud. And that's how the state of Utah handled a similar suicide for hire case. In 2018, 22-year-old Eric Bedolla, while claiming to be a 19-year-old woman,
sorry to interrupt your video. Here is $5 from my
with
campaign to keep quiet
Bedolla
about
in
how
exchange
tiny
for
my hands
$5,000.
are
The
from
hitman
that
was
game of
actually a
Patacade.
detective. That happens a lot in these kinds of cases. The hitman that you're talking to is, you know, probably a cop or an FBI agent. But Bedolla was promptly arrested and charged with first-degree felony.
How do we feel about, I need to dig more into certain things. How do we feel about, like, sometimes you got these terrorist cells in the United States where people end up getting, busted, and you find out that, like, 70% of the terrorist cell are, like, FBI agents? Is that, like, a little... Yeah, I need to look into. I know that like conservatives bring this shit up all the time, and they get like super ass mad over it, like it's fucking entrapment. But I think it's a little bit weird sometimes. Depending, I should ask conservatives for a specific example when they get particularly ass mad over it. But know that yeah, so I remember there was one with some kid that got talked into trying to do like a terrorist attack by like some girl online who was apparently an FBI agent, and conservatives were like, oh, he was just a lonely kid and blah blah blah. But yeah, Michigan governor assassination plot. Yeah, that might have been the one actually. I'm not sure, but
felony criminal solicitation, and second-degree felony obstruction of justice. Like Murdoch, the state did not charge Bedolla for the actual suicide for hire plot, just the ancillary crimes. But that brings us to the main question. What would happen if Mr. Beast did hire an assassin to kill him? What would the legal consequences be for Jimmy and his whole team if everything in the video wasn't actually a stunt, but actually happened in real life? Well, for starters, Mr. Beast is a resident of North Carolina, so that state law controls. And North Carolina does outlaw murder for hire schemes. Not surprising. And interestingly, North Carolina has no specific statute outlining suicide for hire, and we couldn't find any example of the prosecution in that state. Their terminally ill patients do have a right to have their medical representatives honor a patient's decision to withdraw or withhold life-sustaining measures under North Carolina General Article 23. But whether you call it a murder for hire or suicide for hire, Mr. Beast's antics would likely still be classified as an illegal contract killing.
How did Jimmy find an assassin for this anyway? I found Jimmy. He didn't find me.
The fact doesn't change just because Mr. Beast's contract involves an elaborate game of cat and mouse.
So I've seen the other guys that chased Jimmy. He's gonna be ready there for us so he can point and laugh and call us nerds. Well, that ain't gonna happen this time.
A few moments later.
Listen to this real quick. That's my door to my getaway vehicle. Later, nerd. He just ninja flipped out of here again.
And if Mr. Beast or his associates engaged in any interstate commerce or communications or travel in connection with the scheme, from renting tanks to hiring actors to fill up the hotel, well, that murder for hire plot is probably now a federal crime as well. Now, typically, as you saw in the Murdoch and Bedolla cases, individuals who take out a contract against themselves are not charged with the actual suicide for hire plot. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't be. It's still the same crime. And similarly, Mr. Beast could theoretically be charged with conspiracy to off himself. Conspiracy is an agreement between two or more people to commit an illegal act, along with an intent to achieve the agreement's goal.
Happy
and
birthday,
generally at
oopsie.
least one overt act in furtherance of that illegal goal. It's illegal to pay someone to kill someone. And if you're doing the paying, you are engaged in a conspiracy, even when the target is yourself. And I'd feel bad for anyone on Mr. Beast's team who also helped out in the process of intending to off the main star. Because anyone else involved in the murder for hire plot, even if you just take a small overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy, well, you are screwed. Every time someone helped out in this entire scheme, well, they're probably on the hook too. I'm looking at you, Chris.
Are you telling me to rob a bank?
Yeah, actually I am.
And every time Mr. Beast asks someone to commit a crime on his behalf, well, that's probably criminal solicitation. And when Mr. Beast encourages a person to commit a crime, and that person does commit that crime, well, that's
Okay, we're done with this meme shit. Courtney, talk to us. Guide us into the future.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about something that is really important when it comes to dating, and that is the topic of income. So despite
Another,
how
the
important income
15th
is,
video
there
on
are also
income?
a lot of unrealistic expectations surrounding male income, and specifically what we expect a partner to be making. So I have a group of 7 girls here with me today. We're going to be having a conversation about income. I'm going to be asking them some questions and also revealing to them some statistics surrounding male income and the reality of what's going on. And I really want to stress here in the beginning, the point of these videos is not to make anybody look stupid. It's just to have a conversation.
I'm
I
not
think
red
having
pill,
these
guys, I
conversations
promise.
is how we understand and learn about these topics. So without further ado, let's get into it. How old are you?
I'm 25.
I am 25.
I am 24.
I'm 27.
I am 29.
31.
I am 25. Okay, and then what do you do for a living?
I work as a healthcare reimbursement consultant.
I'm a copywriter.
I
Oh.
am in the life insurance industry.
I was gonna
I
say.
am a lead engineer for a software consulting company.
I work at a medical spa.
Ooh.
And I'm in school.
I am a photographer and I also work in data analytics.
So I just graduated, so I'm very, very new at this, but I am a mental health therapist.
And is your partner's income something that's
What are
important to you?
mental health therapists?
necessarily.
Are there other types
As
of
long as
therapists? I guess you could be a physical therapist. Okay.
They're passionate about. Yes, absolutely. I think it's important in the sense that I would like them to be doing something that they enjoy. I think that their outlook on their job probably matters more than my outlook on their job, and because that's going to set the stage of our dynamic. Really, is their lifestyle doesn't match with mine, and it matters in that I would like them to be
Why does she always
doing
play the
something
same
that they
background
find
music? I don't know, but she turned it down this time at
fulfilling,
least.
and I don't really think it matters in terms of how much they're making, and I think again this just comes down to being realistic about money and money standards that we have in people, and I would want to be with someone that is driven, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the dollar has to be a certain number to match that.
Kind of. Okay, explain.
It's important to me that they can function independently from me, and it's important to me that I can function independently from them.
Okay.
So as long as you're making enough to function independently, and as long as you're making enough that like we can do the things we want to do together within like a reasonable timeline, like we don't have to we're taking about the same amount of time to like save up for something big.
Yeah.
That's fine for me.
So you would be totally okay with like contributing 50-50 to the relationship?
I would prefer that.
That's the vibe I was getting.
Yes. I would prefer that mostly because I don't like feeling like love is transactional. I don't like feeling like in an argument, if we're at a low point, someone can hold that over me and be like, well, I paid for this.
Something I've never thought about, well, I say I've never thought about it, but I actually did think about this like a week ago, is when I think about relationships of like men and women, I wonder how much of that was formed by the fact that, I guess in my group, the people that my life, whatever, like when I think of my wife, I think of my kid's mom, every woman I've dated has been working. I've never been like in a sync relationship, single income, no kids. I feel like I've always had like, I feel like my girlfriends have always worked. Was there a point in time where you dated at like 18, 19, 20 where the
Yo,
girl
Nest,
was
I
not
thought
working?
we were doing politics after Factorio was done.
Yep.
Snooze FS.
This is politics, sociopolitics, because it's not like the 1920s. Yeah, I don't know, I kind of wonder. Because I hear people say like, oh, like both people need to earn money. And like when I grew up, like every girlfriend I'm dating is like working. It's not like somebody's like, you're providing for me at like 19.
And I paid for that because in my head, I'm already keeping track of shit like that you could use over me, and that's just an insecurity that I have, so I wouldn't want someone to be contributing more than that.
So you would...
Was Melina working? Was Melina working? Kind of, but like I had... Basically the way I worked with Melina is I told her when we started, I met her in New Zealand, and I see a lot of potential. She's young, she's hot, she's Swedish, and I'm like, listen, I love you very much. If you come back to the United States with me, I'll love you, I'll marry you, we'll do whatever, and we can make so much money together. So then I started getting her involved in the streaming stuff. I showed her a way to make a ton of money. I had other girls talk to her to kind of get her into the whole streaming world. Just kidding. Wait, you have exes that didn't work either? I'm pretty sure every ex I had, there was that one girl I dated like long distance for like a year. She didn't work, but I mean that was like kind of a thing. What about Shaylin?
We want to do more of like the team mentality of like we're doing this together, we're growing our wealth together, we're
Oh my
growing
God.
things in together rather than like one person being the sole provider.
Oh my god.
Did you ever get Teresa to work for you? No, she worked at the... oh no, I guess she didn't work that much. She worked at the mall actually for a little bit, but she would like quit and then restart depending on how much her manager pissed her off. I guess. Maybe not. I'm thinking I guess in my early life, like my first wife and my kid's mom, we always worked. That's how we got our first house.
Any infected around?
Yes, absolutely yes.
What do you
It is important to me,
Yes.
but it's not something that is like a main factor when I'm considering a relationship or a partner.
So you're not asking on the first date, how much money do you make?
Oh my gosh, no.
Yes and no. I do believe that like while money isn't everything, unfortunately with just society and living and the cost of living, it does matter a little bit. It really does. To me, I don't really make great money right now because I'm very new into the workforce.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to judge anybody for pretty much how much they make because I am not making a lot. So I can't be like, oh, you have to make, this much money for me to date you and then not contribute in some way because that is big for me. So I want to be able to contribute financially and feel like as much as I can that it's equal.
I'm trying to think of any situation. I feel like if a girl ever asks you how much money do you make on the first date, that's got to be like the most red flag shit in the world. That's like, okay, I'm taking you back to my apartment and I'm fucking you for $200. It's like, are we doing like a pay for pussy thing here? That's like, I can't imagine somebody asking that on the first date. So how much money do you make? It would be like, what?
So yeah, I mean, yes, it does matter in a sense, but also it's not the end all be all. Like I don't judge people because if they make like, 40K a year, obviously not great, but I'm like, hey, I'm barely making that. So
Yeah.
who am I to judge?
So you're kind of holding your partner to the same standard you're holding yourself.
Yeah, and
which is fair.
Yeah, and as we get older, sure, our incomes increase, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'm 25, my partner will probably be in their 20s as well one day, so
Yeah, I mean, we're only gonna work up, you know, and so
I'm
that's exciting. And we
25
have
and my partner will be in their 20s one day. Wow. Actual fucking pedophile.
places to go. So at this point in my life, I don't think it's that big of a deal. No.
Got it. Okay. And you're thinking of it in terms of like, we can grow together.
Yes.
Right? Like, I'm not waiting for you at the finish line.
Yeah.
Like, we're building this together.
Yeah.
So what is the age of the person that you would want to be with?
I feel like age is important, but I have learned throughout my lifetime that no matter what age they are, they could be 30 and act like a 12-year-old, or they could be 23 and be very, you know, centered and mature. I think at this age of being 25, I've looked like 26 to 32 would be kind of the area, the range I've looked at.
26 to 32.
Okay, so if you had to pick a number, maybe 28.
That's so specific.
28, 29.
Probably anywhere between 24 and 32. Probably 24 and 30, maybe 24 and 32.
Okay, do you want to go in the middle, like 27-ish?
Yeah, I love a good 27.
Just
27 is
pick a
supposed to be a hot year too. I'm excited for that.
25 to 30 right now, I think would be ideal. For me too, I wouldn't mind a couple years older. So I wouldn't mind like 28 or even a little bit in the 30s too, like 31, 32.
Okay, do you want to go 28 just to be safe?
Yeah, let's go 28. Yeah, that's good.
Ideally, I would like to be with someone around my age just because we would have grown up with similar dynamics in terms of references that we understand, and then also to just, I would like to be with someone that is maybe around my age but also kind of young at heart too.
Okay, so if you had to pick an age, what would you say?
I would say if I had to pick an age, probably 33, 34.
I don't think I would date anyone younger than me, just because I don't know, maybe a little bit younger than me and not
What?
too much, but the mature.
It's Melon. How are you, Melon? Stop! I'm streaming! What the Mel? Not on stream.
Level with men is just not
Right.
there yet. I've noticed. I've dated men that are 10, 12 years older than me, and they're still not as mature. I don't know. I guess it's just the type of person that I'm with, but I don't really know. I don't really know. I don't have like an age. I don't look at that.
Okay, if you had
All
to
the
pick one.
fishermen, I'm going that way.
Do we
At least 35.
35. Okay, so do you want to go 35 just to be safe?
Let's do 35.
Okay.
Let's do
I
35.
prefer to date men that are at least 4 to 5 years older than me, just from a maturity standpoint. I don't want a guy that's still in his club and bar hopping phase. To me, that's really unattractive. I also don't want somebody younger than me, so I would definitely say like at least
That's the
4
phase
to
I'm in
5
right now.
years older than my age. Yeah.
What?
Okay.
You are gonna pay me for this, right?
I'll think about it.
No, do it now because she was.
Let's go.
Are you fucking melling me right now, Mel?
You are a big boy, and I believe in you.
You're gonna fucking mel?
It's gonna take you 2 minutes.
It's gonna take me like 3 minutes.
Attention.
Yeah.
Building.
Oh shit, are you watching your rock collection? Oh no.
She's watching her.
Rock collection time.
Yeah. Are you sure? Yes.
I'll show them how happy we are together.
Yes. Great.
Oh.
Okay.
I know.
getting
You've been acting so
murdered.
distant. Now that you got your green card. What's going on?
Who do you want?
What's going on with that, Mel?
A new tab.
Huh?
Great. Seems to be okay.
Yeah, you stopped talking to me.
Did I?
Yep, you got your green card. You're like, see ya.
Gotcha. You. Okay. Hey. Straight to the heart. Is that all?
Technology research finished.
Great.
Hold on, give me one second.
They are trying to break through.
Aren't there other units to bother? You again. Yeah. You call that a plan? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Gotcha. This better be good. Right.
Our
Yeah.
defenses are being
Yes.
attacked.
Great. Okay. Gotcha. Yes. Okay. Are you sure? You call that a plan? Okay. Okay. But it's gonna cost you double.
Yeah.
What's up? Any infected around? Gotcha. Okay. What do you want now? Roger that. Are you sure? Great. Sounds interesting. It could be worse. Gotcha. I hope you're not wasting my time. Yeah.
I need to kill something.
Roger that. Great. Yeah.
Nothing better than putting a bullet through some brains.
Great idea. No, I'm just kidding. Bow and arrows. Okay. Ready. Yes. Great. Yeah. Great idea. No, I'm just kidding. Yes.
Yeah, that's Destiny's. Let's see what's happening on YouTube. Nope. Staying here.
This better be good. Okay, let me put an arrow in his head. Are you sure? You order, you pay. Are you sure? Yes.
You sniper.
We only speak English in this household.
Do we want to go 28 or 29?
28, 29 is good. Preferably 30 to 32 is the best for me, but somebody in their
So
late
we'll choose
20s.
30.
Yeah.
Just because it's kind of in the middle.
I go for a range between the age of 30 and 10 years older than me, ideally 34.
And what would you want his income to be?
Is this woman black or white?
Realistically.
No, I'm just kidding.
Nothing hurts Steven Chat. I made and jerk off to deepfake videos of Tiny. There is nothing he can do to stop me. L. 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 L.
Are you sure? Gotcha. I hope you're not wasting my time. My bow and arrows are ready.
Building completed.
Okay, we're at about 55%, 50% black, 38% Latinx.
You are gonna pay me for
At this current point in time? Ooh, okay. At this current point in time, at the age of 34, I would like it to be between $100,000 and $120,000.
50K or up.
Okay. Do you want to just say 50K?
Yeah. Let's say 50K.
Okay. I'd like it to.
Wait, what is she?
Okay.
Hold on, I'm sitting there.
Realistically.
Ooh, research.
At this current point in time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At this current point in time, at the age of 34, I would like it to be between $100,000 and $120,000.
Jesus.
50K or up.
Okay. Do you want to just say 50K?
Yeah. Let's say 50K.
Over 100.
Hey.
Jesus.
Okay. So give me one number. Do you want to do 120, 100?
Let's do 120.
120.
Let's
And
just
that's to where you would feel comfortable, you know, you would live a comfortable life that would feel realistic for you.
Yeah. I mean, with the way our society is going, and our world is going, 120 I feel is comfortable.
Okay.
And that's pushing it, maybe. Like we could maybe do a little bit lower, but we'll stick with 120.
Okay.
I would hope that, you know, if they're going to be if they're at that age, depending on their path and the career that they're in, you know, I'm assuming they've been working for probably 6, maybe 7 years if they're 28. Maybe between 65 and 90.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to go 75?
Yeah, we can go 75, yeah.
At least 50K.
I would say then I would want someone to make about, then 70, probably 75.
Did she get her non-rich friends for this video?
Like I said, it doesn't really matter if they're able to pay their own bills and they're able to support themselves financially. That's what's important. Like I said, it's not really that much of a factor because income is so relative to where you are in your career, whether you just got out of school and you're pursuing a medical job, or if you're in like a business type industry like I am, like in financial services of sorts. It really varies, but I'm not gonna put a number on it because
Wow.
it's too variable. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Because it's discriminatory to judge a guy based on how much money he makes.
Okay,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
so we
Yeah.
can kind of go off that. Say he graduated college when he turned, what, 21, 22? So he's like 8 years, 9 years out of college. He's 30 years old, he's had 9 years to establish himself. What is an income that you would feel comfortable living your lifestyle on at the moment if he's 30?
If he's 30 and he's been working for almost 10 years, maybe 150 to 200 for his work experience.
Wait, how did
So
she?
150.
How did she move?
But you also said you think it's discriminatory.
It
to
is,
put a
but you're
number on
making
it.
me put a number on it. So with
Yeah.
somebody that's got
Wait,
10
what
years of
happened?
work experience, they should be getting compensated well for the time that they put in and the amount of years of experience that they have in that field if they've
Yeah.
stayed with the same field.
What do you think is the median income for the age that you specified? So 35. If you had to guess.
Like 70?
Jeez.
Actually, 52,000. Does that surprise you?
It does.
Lower
It's a
than
little
you
lower.
thought?
It's a little lower than I thought, yeah.
Okay, so 15% of men are 35 making 120.
Hard to find.
Damn, lost a
Pretty-
veteran.
It's a small percentage,
Yes, it is.
right? I mean, it's definitely more than some people, but 15 is still not that big.
I'm going to guess it's probably around 50, 55.
33, the median is 49. Okay, so you were kind of close there, around the same ballpark. And then the number you chose was 75. 75,000 at 33 is the top 27% of men. Okay, so I mean,
A little less realistic, I suppose.
it's not so crazy. I mean, 27% is not that much, but it's definitely more realistic than some of the other things.
Corporations need to start paying up more.
And inflation's really kicking us.
That's the big thing.
For age 34.
Why watch more of these videos? Are you cool with creating incels now?
Yep.
Or are you just ready to need another anti-misogyny arc?
You know what? Here's what I'm gonna say. Are you guys ready? I'm gonna trigger the fuck out of all of you. This is what I said when I say this a lot and people get really triggered. I always said that even when I was working poor, and I'm totally admitting this is just my life experience, okay? When I was working poor, gas prices were never a make or break for me. Like when I think of like I can't afford to live, I'm losing my house, etc. It was never like, oh my god, I spend so much on gas. It's just never been a factor for me. But I know that like, but it was strange during the Biden stuff. Like everybody seemed to obsess over like gas prices. Now people are also saying that maybe the cost of like other food goes up when gas goes up. I guess maybe. But when I was working, I always drove small cars. The one thing that always triggered the fuck out of me when I saw people complain about gas prices climbing was, why the fuck are so many poor, dumb fuck Americans crying about gas when all of you guys drive trucks? It was the one thing that I never understood. I could never, ever, ever get it. All of these people cry about gas prices and they're driving these huge, disgusting trucks. And I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you when you tell me that gas is expensive and it's hurting you when you drive these gas-guzzling monster fuck vehicles. Fuck all of you. And I drove around my little Dodge Neon, my little Volkswagen GTI, my little whatever. I don't know. That was my thing. I think that the Zoomer equivalent of that, ready? Here you go. There it goes. Here we go. If you DoorDash more than once a month, I don't think you can ever complain about inflation. Boom. There you go. If you DoorDash more than once a month, I cannot believe how expensive it is. How much do you think I spent yesterday? I got yesterday when I DoorDashed my cheeseburger from Five Guys. I got a double cheeseburger with bacon. I got a small fry and I got a Coke Zero. How much do you think that cost? I don't know why I asked all chat. Now you all spam every fucking number.
Yeah, that's a certain kill.
What's up? Any infected around? My bow and arrows are ready. Okay, great.
For that one meal, it cost me $39. I'm pretty sure that if I really tried, I'm pretty sure that I could live off less than $100 a month in groceries. If I really stretched. I think I could. $25 a week? Probably not on Miami Beach. If I'm doing like rice and beans and shit, we're stretching. But I know for $200 a month, very easily, I could live off of $200 a month for groceries.
What's up, Destiny?
100%.
Can you say
Easily.
Happy birthday, Jonathan.
What? Gotcha.
The idea that I, as one person on one single meal, can easily spend $30 or $40 on like one DoorDash fucking, not even a great meal, is fucking wild. It's absolutely fucking wild. How much does the meal cost if you go to the place? I don't know. For some reason on DoorDash, for all these meal things, it's literally like $15, $20 in markups on like random shit.
You are gonna pay for this, right?
Like a snake with its prey.
But anyway, yeah. Fucking Zoomers that do that shit are wild. And then complain about inflation. How long was your commute when you were working poor? If you had an hour or two commute due to traffic, that's a lot of gas to go through being stuck on $4.95. $4.95? I don't know what that means. Back then it was $5.15 an hour, $5.25 an hour, I think, when I worked at McDonald's. I actually commuted. I'm trying to think. I lived in South Omaha off of 42nd and L, so it was 42nd and L to the casino. Although I lived up at 108th and Maple before in Omaha. Probably like a 30-minute commute. It was a decent commute, I think. It took me about 20-30 minutes, which is like a decent Midwest commute. Now, if you live in any of your cities, it's like 2 hours to go fucking 10 miles. But in Nebraska, I think you could do over a mile a minute, I think, depending where you're going, because you just hop on the interstate and it's not like super crowded. But yeah, I always drove compacts. I always drove small cars. I never understood people that drove, like, when I see one person sitting in a minivan or an SUV, I'm just like thinking, like, what the fuck are you doing? It's just, it blows my mind.
What do you want now?
Yes, tell me what to kill. Yeah. Slow but lethal.
$4.95 is a highway loop? Maybe, yeah. There's a way to know everything. What is it? I think it's any interstate that ends in an even number, I think always runs east to west. So like if I make up, like if there's an Interstate 90, or if there's an I-40 in the US, I think it always runs east-west. Anything going north and south ends in an odd number. So like the 5 or I-5 when you get to Washington. Or like if there's an interstate like 85, it's always north-south. And then there's a thing for exchanges and add-ons or whatever as well. So like for instance, I think if it's like if it's an even first number, it's like an exchange that goes like east. So like 5, like 405 versus like the 705. There's the way that the numbers work is actually it's all supposed to tell you like the way, but nobody knows. Nobody cares about it. But yeah. This video covers what you're talking about. Oh, does it?
The interstate highway shields hide within them long forgotten knowledge, as our great ancestors could navigate by the signs in the sky before the creation of majors, beginning with the next northernest is San Francisco.
For because it's not my own age. Maybe 70,000?
Bro, the price here is $7 per gallon. The average monthly wage is €1,000. Listen, I'm not speaking about European gas prices. Okay, I don't know anything about your shit. Fuck you. Destiny, my family is all working poor and they have to drive a lot for their small business. Family works in landscape. Yeah, if you have to do that shit, it's probably different, right? I don't think gas prices were high in my carpet cleaning days, but I imagine if they went up there for the carpet cleaning van, gas prices would probably start to get pretty shitty, but.
Maybe 65?
It is $50,000.
I could see that being real.
Okay, 100,000 at age 34 is the top 17% of men.
That feels like better odds.
Yeah.
I feel good about that.
Do you have to pay gas for your van?
80,000? It's actually 45,000.
No.
Really?
Obviously not.
Does that shock you?
Did I tell you? I didn't realize the game to be played. I thought I got ripped off on my carpet cleaning shit. Because my wages, by the time I factored in everything, I'm not going to tell this story, but like by the time I factored in how much time I was spending at my carpet cleaning job, I was basically making like $250 an hour. I was kind of fucked. And I was like, this is, my life is getting destroyed over this shit job. I didn't realize, and I don't know if this is true of all small businesses, I didn't realize that you were supposed to be stealing from the fucking company though, and they had like fucking priced that in basically. That people would take their carpet cleaning vans, they would drive out and they would sell jobs at massively discounted rates to customers, but they would pocket all the money. I didn't know that people were doing that. Because I had always wondered, like, how the fuck do you guys make a living doing all this carpet cleaning shit? It's like, oh, we sell jobs out of our vans without like telling the boss. It's like, oh, well, fuck me, I'm a fucking retard. So you might charge a customer like $300 for a job, and my commission was 16%. So for a $300 job, it's probably taking you 3 to 4 hours, and I'd make $16 an hour for those 3 to 4 hours, but it doesn't include downtime before or after. So I might make, we'll say $48 on a $300 job. However, another person would go and sell that same job for $200. They'd give them a $100 discount. So customer saves 1/3 right off the top, but then they pocket the whole job. So I'm making, you know, 30, 40 bucks off a job. Another guy might make $200 off that job, and he's not telling the boss about it. I didn't know any of that shit. It was like, fuck, I didn't know that until like the end of my carpet cleaning days. I don't know if everybody does that in small business shit or like contractor work, where you just like sell jobs out of your own shit. And but fuck.
Yeah. I mean, Tess.
Yeah, I am screwed.
Right, the form check.
Yeah, back don't supposed to do that.
As a personal trainer, people try to do that all the time. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Oh, a guy did it to me when I talked to a personal trainer at the fucking in California. He's like, oh, dude, I can train you at like a different gym. But we can't do it here, and you can't tell anybody. It's like, oh, okay. It's, I know this game. I've heard of this one before.
Yeah. Yes. You again.
I need to explode this car.
Attention. Building completed. Attention. Building completed.
It does, because I've worked my entire career, I've worked around people that have made 6 figures out the gate, starting in my field. So income-wise, I guess.
What's our field again?
I am a little sheltered because I've been around young people that are in high income earning positions from such a young age, and they only grow with their
success. She works in insurance?
Because that's all I know. Like I've been in my industry for quite a few years now. Like that's all I know. I'm not really paying attention to like what's outside of that. So
My rifle is ready.
I have something really important. The moment I saw you, my eyes were just, oh my god, I love you.
The median income, I'm gonna go with 82,000.
42,000 for a 28-year-old.
Wow.
Does that shock you?
That shocks me.
You keep playing a low tier guy Judean conversation. Didn't this happen weeks ago?
Hey, before I leave, man, I just want to let you.
2 weeks ago. We already watched this. Chill.
And why does that shock you?
I think, and I could attribute it to maybe the industry that I'm in and the people that I've really been surrounded with my whole career. I've worked in finance my whole life, and I guess I'm making an assumption here that maybe the median is higher in that field, but I guess I just assumed that, you know, at 20, I don't know, 42 just seems very low, especially given like inflation and all of that. Just like, it's 2023, I would assume that a 28-year-old was making more than 42.
Damn.
I don't know, it surprises me.
How much do
so
you make?
your own experience, the people you're around, people you've dated, all kind of contribute to why you're assuming that.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So if we're looking at a 28-year-old making 75K, as you mentioned, that's the 81st percentile. So 19% of men, essentially, are making that amount at 28.
I'm pretty sure. I thought that the median income overall was 40K in the U.S.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna guess for the average 27-year-old, although the average 27-year-old in our generation, probably a lot more college degrees.
Yeah, a lot more people go to college now.
Yeah, I'll say 55.
It's 41.
just died. I knew it! When I said 42!
Oh my god, chill.
You were close.
I
You were
knew
close.
it.
I mean, 50 is still pretty close.
It is.
But it's actually crazy because the median income never eclipses $61,000 regardless of the age. That's in the workforce between ages 16 and 75.
I'm not gonna bring that in.
Oh shit.
I appreciate you can put it in if you want, but I got feelings.
Yep, my mouse
Again,
is
that's not
dying.
on my partner, that's on society.
Right. Over 70%
Does anyone else
of men never
capitalism?
even make 100K once in their lifetime.
Breaks my heart.
Does it surprise you?
No.
No.
No. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps is false. It's not fucking true. The top 1% are the top 1% for a reason.
Wow.
Not all of us can possibly make that much money. Stats like this I think they need to be made known, because I think a lot of women are like led to believe that it's easy to make that much money, and that it's easy for a man to make that much money. Like, bitch, if it's hard for you to make that much money, it's hard for him to make that much money. I mean, it's harder for you because women are always going to make less. Unfortunately, that's where we're at right now.
Did
For
she
you
just
to
say
make that to
bitch?
believe that
Did
it's
she say?
easy
Wait, did you really call her?
to make that much money, and then it's easy for a man to make that much money. Like, bitch, if it's hard for you to make that much money, it's hard for him
She said, bitch.
to make that much money. I mean, it's harder for you because women are always going to make less. Unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. But that doesn't surprise me at all. And I would never expect someone to eventually make that much money over the course of their life. I'm just trying to live a comfortable life. I'm not trying to get too extravagant.
It is shocking. Well, maybe companies need to start paying people proportionally to things like inflation, rising costs of housing, rising costs of taxes.
Careful, you're sounding like a
Because
communist.
putting people in those types of positions long term is not going to be good, because you can only live
Just found
on
out about
a
wages,
certain base of
man.
money
Shit
before things
sucks.
start becoming unaffordable. So expecting somebody
Okay, yes,
to
my
work
mouse
50
is
years of their life and not make more than $60,000 is kind of unrealistic for how expensive things are getting and will continue to get for people.
Yeah, like out of college, my first job, I think I made 35 or 37K. Like my first job out of college, which is less than the median, which is crazy to think about. But over 70% of men never even make 100K once in their lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you're 24 already making that yourself, then when you're looking at the dating pool, it's like you expect people to be at that level too because you are. And I think that's kind of the tunnel vision that a lot of people have, or just their like little bubble of life, you know, like.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, like I said, it's an
Bubble.
unfair judgment to put a number on what you think a guy is supposed to make, because it varies so much depending on what you do for a living, how long you've been working, what field you're in. You know, that those are not really fair questions or numbers to like put on somebody, because it varies. I mean, like, if that's your lifestyle and that's what you're comfortable with, then yeah, you're gonna go for somebody that. If I'm in my lifestyle and I've been doing this and I want somebody in my field almost, then yeah, there's like some expectations for that, because I, you know, that's just like what it is, because every field is a little bit different. Like, if both like, think about it, like 2-income household, if both people are teachers and they're making an average of $45,000 a year,
Average?
they're
Where is
bringing
she
home
from?
$90,000 collectively as a household to support both of their lifestyles, pay taxes, pay their mortgage, those sort of things. It's
What
all
is his
relative
accent?
to what both people
Minnesota?
are doing, and I do
Jesus.
see that. You know, in my field, because I do work on a client-to-client basis, I see people's incomes. And I think that some of them are disproportionate to their age and their work experience. However, I do feel like the people that they choose to be with and marry and be in relationships with, both incomes are similar. I see that.
Oh, that's interesting. Because
Yeah.
you work with, yeah.
I
that's
work with
interesting.
people on a client-to-client basis, yeah, so I see the income.
And it's normally kind of proportionate. Like
It is proportionate.
Equivalent, yeah.
Yes, it is.
I think that's why some guys get upset, because there's like girls who don't want to work or don't make any money,
Mhm.
and then they want a guy to make $1 million.
Yeah, that's not fair. Yeah, no, that's not fair. I mean, like, if you're...
It's interesting that she works, so what she just said is actually true, right? That people tend to date with an income. Everybody, like, I mean, it's kind of like an easy common sense thing when you think about it, because like all these red pill guys are like, oh no, girls want all girls want guys making 6 figures. It's like, there's not that many guys. Like, there's not that many guys to go around, my dude. People tend to date within their income ranges.
you're not putting your end of your work in, it's not gonna work.
We'll go 55.
42,000 for a 28-year-old.
Oh man, yeah.
And if we're looking, let's see, you said 50,000.
So deflated.
40% of men make that.
Okay, I mean,
So
it's not bad.
the odds are kind of in your favor. I mean, it's like almost half, you know?
Yeah. I also think too that like jobs don't pay nearly what they should in like any profession, so it's just like, oh, it's sad to hear that.
I know.
Like 42K is the average for like a 28-year-old. Like, wow.
Yeah, and then like regardless of age, so between 16 and 75, the median income never eclipses $61,000, regardless of the age.
Wow.
If we're looking at medians. Which I think median is a better thing to use here instead of averages, because the averages include like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, who are making
billions,
buttloads of money. So it kind of sways the data, you know?
Yeah.
And then over 70% of men never even make 100K once in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Which is sad when you hear it, because I just know so many men in my life who work so hard their entire life.
Yeah.
And they never will ever make that amount of money.
And that's like, and it's depending on how well educated those men are too. Like, college plays a huge factor. Like, well, okay, what's the point of going to college then?
Right.
You know, college promotes you like, oh, you'll have a better job and you'll have a better income, and then you go to college and you get out of college and you're like, no, like I'm not making what I was told I would be making.
The average salary for a master's degree is like $69,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, and then you have a ton of debt from going to school.
And then
Yeah.
you're constantly playing catch up, and then you're not even making what you were told to be making, and that just, it's infuriating. It's infuriating, and that's a whole other topic we probably get into about like the education system and just higher education is like, is it really worth it almost to go back to school?
Right.
All right, so now I'm really even like, oh man, I really shouldn't judge anybody for how much they make, because I'm like, oh my god, we're all struggling out here.
I know. Well, and I think that too. Like a lot of people don't know that, and they're so hard on themselves. They're so hard on other people because they don't know the reality.
Yeah.
Right. And like what you're asking for in a partner, I think a lot of people have these unrealistic standards of what they want their ideal partner to be like. Right. It's like we're going to Whole Foods buying groceries. It's a checklist of what we want someone to be, but when you figure out the reality of what you're asking for, it's like, whoa, no wonder I'm not having luck because I'm asking for crazy stuff.
Yeah, like that is unreal. And like at the end of the day,
This is something I strongly believe in. I don't believe that happens. I don't believe. I am a firm believer. Actually, not a believer. This is one of the few things that I've learned in life. Okay, I think I talked about this on some other show I was on recently. People will date a surprisingly diverse group of people if they click. The number one way that I've seen this, I kind of talk around this, is that like whenever somebody says like, oh, like I'm not looking to date anybody right now, oh, I would never date XYZ type of person, they absolutely would, given the right circumstances. They absolutely would. People say things like, oh yeah, I would never date like my friend's ex, or I would never date like in my friend group or whatever, but as soon as they find the right person, they'll do it. I don't believe that there's a girl that could like meet a guy, they get along, they click super well, everything's fine, and then she's like, oh no, he's only earning $75K a year, like it's not gonna work. I don't think that ever, I just don't believe that ever happens. I super don't believe it.
my god, like me and my partner aren't making that much money. As long as we're happy together, that's fine. I mean, with those statistics too, it's almost like, oh my god, how do you even find somebody that's making? How do I even make 3 or 6 figures one day? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get there myself. So who am I to judge, you know?
It's kind of crazy because the median income, regardless of the age, so you said 33, but regardless of the age, it never eclipses $61,000 across the board. And then over 70% of men.
How does he
never
still
even
pull
make
up his
100K.
logged in account on stream? Wait, did somebody use Streamlink or something? Destiny, how about you just preach what you walk? Good one.
Bullseye. I smell this coming.
Okay, once in their lifetime, which is kind of crazy.
What I think is interesting about this is that these women work and their answers are so reasonable compared to the women in previous videos. I can say things where like, I don't actually want to. I don't know. Well, it sounds mean, and I could be post-talking it. I was gonna say something at the beginning, but maybe what somebody said in chat influenced me already. When I look at these women,
crazy to think about.
I guess it's probably.
No, I can't even when I say this. It feels like I'm post-talking this so bad. But like, I feel like when I look at these women,
to like put on believe that it's easy to.
like these women look to me like they're like middle-class women. That they just, I don't know why or how.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Or maybe I can't. We should do like a thing where I look at videos and try to guess the income. When I look at the, I'm not saying they look ugly. I'm just saying there's like when I looked at the,
Just give me something to shoot. So many targets.
what was the, what was the crazy income one where they talk about like 500K and shit? It was on the search results. Go back. Courtney Ryan.
Do you need me?
You read my mind.
solely off of your culture, what percent?
This person, I don't know why. This person just looks rich to me. I could be wrong, and maybe there's like a bias, but like I would see this person like, oh shit, like your parents are lawyers and they're the poorest ones in your family tree probably. Like that's how wealthy this person looks. I don't know if it's like the perfect teeth, if it's like the perfect hair, the perfect skin, the kind of like fashionable clothing, just the like
of the family.
And I think almost everybody in these videos looked like.
I feel
like these people all look rich. I don't know if it's designer clothes, I don't know, or like the jewelry. They just look, all of these people look like they come from very, very, very wealthy backgrounds.
Lens would be super cool.
Like very prep school, very not like new money, like wealthy families. That's like the impression I get. And then these people are all saying things like like, oh, like I want my husband to have like 500K in income and shit. But then I look at him like, yeah, you guys all look like, you guys look really wealthy. Whereas for some reason I feel like these people don't as much. But I could also just be post-talking all of that. Maybe I just make this all up in my head. I don't know.
Everything you see on the internet, take with a grain of salt for the most part, because you can work from home and not wear any pants and still have a nice shirt on and no one's gonna know. So really, perception is reality, and you got.
So I'm saying you don't know why, you know what you're looking for, clothes, makeup, and so on. Yeah, but it's not it's not like, it's not just that. I feel like when you're wealthy, I think that you have, there's probably two things going on. One is kind of shitty, is you probably are working with a higher set of genetics, get mad. But second is you can afford a lot of stuff for your kids relating to their health that probably comes out in appearance wise. Like, so for instance, like your teeth, like wealthy people always have like perfect teeth for their kids because they're always getting like braces, they're making sure they've got good dental health. You're never gonna find like if you go to like a prep school or like a private college or even for expensive state schools, you're not gonna find people like fucked up teeth. That just doesn't happen. Like incredibly, incredibly rare. So that's usually a thing. Their clothes oftentimes look very new and nice. Not necessarily like, I'm not talking like Gucci or Prada, like designer shit. If anything, those people come off as poorer to me, or like they're trying to flaunt some bullshit that a guy bought or whatever. But they just look like very nice. Like I feel like I could go to like an alumni function event or some shit, and I would see them sitting there with like their wealthy parents. Like there's just like a way that they look, where it's like, damn, these are like prep school kids, super wealthy prep school kids. That's what it looks like to me. But also, oh, and the way they speak, very educated. They speak very well. Yeah, But I could be post-talking literally all of that. I could be post-talking everything I just said there. So yeah, I don't know.
Let's go. Gotta take it for what it is.
He has thought a lot about this. I went to a wealthy prep school, and the girls that I dated came from other wealthy prep schools when I went to college. No, not college, high school. I went to Creighton Prep in Omaha, and then like all the girls I dated and everything came from like Marianne, Duchesne, and Mercy? Was that the other all-girls high school? And people at prep schools, because Chris, my friend Chris, was like a poor Mexican dude. He sold weed. So we would always make, and my family background by the time I got to high school was fucked. We were getting kicked out of houses and shit. So me and him would always, it was probably a cope, I guess, when we were younger. But we would always make fun of like prep kids and how prep kids looked and their lifestyles and their families or whatever. Like when we go to like Kyle's house, like his mom is like making dinner in their big house for their family that's like all perfect and everything. And then me and Chris would go drive around and like fuck around and just do wild stupid shit because our lives were fucking weird as fuck. But there was like, it was a very different world. Like wealthy people just live in like a different kind of world and ecosystem. Everything in their lives are different. Their cars are nicer. They don't have check engine lights on all the time. None of their phones are getting shut off. They've always got one parent in the household checking in on you, making sure everything is okay and cooking meals for you. Their siblings are always like in sports after school and shit. It's like a whole different world when you've got like wealthy families versus like kind of like busted families. I don't know how to explain it, but like, cause I kind of had like one foot in both worlds when I was doing school, and you kind of see like the differences in lifestyles, I guess. It's a whole different ecosystem of existence between like wealthy prep families versus, but I'm saying prep because I went to prep. I mean, I'm sure there's like billionaire families and everything, but yeah, it's just like a totally different, yeah.
Then understand that that's where you're at in life is not contingent on where someone else is, because if you're caught up with what everyone else is doing and flexing whatever and having all of this FOMO, you're gonna be really unhappy. And so I think just having a singular line of thought with where your goals are going is way more important than trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what made you say.
Test it out here.
Well-dressed, beautiful black woman in Seattle.
Oh, guess my income. Well, this is gonna be weird because it's like they're trying to throw you off. So I don't know if you're gonna get people that are gonna be like, oh, I look like really wealthy, but I make $22,000 a year. We can try it after this. I don't know. We'll try it. We'll write it down.
that number specifically? Like, is it the people you're around? Is it your industry? Is it guys you've dated? Like, kind of all of
Guys I've dated, my industry, those sort of things. So
I would say that's a combination of all of those. I would say just in terms of people I've dated, and then also, you know, including my income as well. But again, in terms of that number, I understand that that's not where.
Why did you say middle to upper class are better genetics? Is there any empirical evidence to this? It would just be a guess in terms of like how people find mates and have children and all that. There's probably some genetic like shit that is like moving through different lines. That would be my guess in terms of things related to like physical health, things related to mental health, etc. It's just a guess. I could be wrong, but
Everybody's at, and that's fine with me. In terms of where I'm at, is I'm very much comfortable with being someone who makes more. That's never been an issue for me. The only issue I've had is other people being intimidated by that, or not accepting the dynamic for what it is. And I think that can be hard when we do push this pressure on men to be the breadwinners when we don't need to do that.
I very much am very happy with the 50-50 income split, but actually the big thing for me and the big reason why money would be important is that it actually shows, I've kind of mentioned this, drive. So for somebody who is making more money, and I'm sure that there are people who don't make as much, who have a lot of passion, a lot of drive, which is fantastic. But if you're making that much, it already is being shown. And you're on a trajectory to continue forward and be successful.
Actually, that's
so it kind of shows you other traits that this person could maybe have that would be appealing to you.
Exactly.
Okay.
I make 52, so I think 50K is comfortable. My first job out of college, I made 30K. It was a nightmare. I knew I was underpaid, but I thought I was getting good experience. I wasn't. It sucked. The job just was awful. But I hated making 30K. I had to pick up a bartending job on the side. It was a nightmare. And so I think people who make less than 50K are probably, they have enough things going on that prioritizing a relationship might be difficult for them. Not impossible, but it might be difficult. And I guess like I could date someone who makes under 50K, but it would have to be like, I would never want them to, I wouldn't want them to feel like that they had to keep up with me in my lifestyle, or that they had to match my lifestyle, because that's a lot of pressure to put on someone. And so I would want someone who we don't even have to deal with that pressure. But again, if I like him a lot and he makes a little bit of money, I'm sure I'd try to make it work for a little bit.
I chose 120 just because of my income myself. Okay. The lifestyle that I'm single, I have a child, so we live, I'm 30.
What's your income?
I already have my ways set and
I'm
what
so
I enjoy
curious.
doing, and I know how much that costs to do. So I want to live comfortably. I want to be able to have fun.
Is this a
still.
single
I wanna
mom
go
earning
and see
100K?
things
Jesus.
And do things and not be just like stuck. And I want to have nice things. I don't want to live out of my means, but I just want to have nice things.
Yeah, so I guess on average right now, I am making about 50K. I don't even think I'm making that much, to be completely honest with you. And I'm so new that like my income is so low that I'm kind of like, oh, well, I'm just going to take my income, and if it's the same as mine, that's fine, you know? So that's kind of where I came up with 50K. That was honestly it. It was just for my own personal. I'm like, yeah, that's what I make. That's probably what other people make too, right?
Right.
So
a lot of people use that
lady
as a way
sounds
to
crazy.
kind of figure
Figure
out.
out.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's like
Melanie.
you have lived your experience. You're basing other things off of that.
Yeah.
So have you ever dated a man who makes like the 75K that you wanted, or around that?
No.
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 Less than that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been in a couple different relationships in my life. Nothing so serious that I considered marrying somebody, and nothing so serious that I introduced them to my family. But I have dated men where they do well for themselves, but I didn't see a future with them, so I didn't pursue the relationship further.
Damn.
Yes. Okay. Was it like official? Was it casual? What kind?
Just like casual.
Casual. Okay.
Yes, out of the 4 people I dated, 2 did.
Okay. So you were like official? and
Yeah,
exclusive with
for
them?
more than a year
Okay.
each.
Okay.
Yeah, so the last person I was with made more than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clearly, it didn't sway you wanting to be with a man who makes that much again. So.
Yeah, no, that was not the reason that we were together, and not a reason that we broke up. So.
Would you marry a guy who makes less money than you?
Yeah, I don't really care too much about the money. That's not really a contributing factor.
Okay, there's other things that are more important.
Yes.
Is it Minnesota?
I would have no problem marrying
That is a
someone who makes
thick accent.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you said you'd be okay with being the breadwinner.
That's totally fine. Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. Again, I don't think that it's a hard cutoff line. Money shows drive, but it's not everything. Like I said, there's some people out there.
It took me a while to realize that the Carson Caterino and the Destiny Caterino were the same person, whatever it was that happened. Why are you not covering the Trump shit? Somebody said that the indictments for Trump were released or unsealed and that we're gonna get them soon. As soon as the indictments are out, we can read them, but we're waiting for, I'm waiting for them to get unsealed right now, I think. They're not unsealed yet, right? Melly, no. Wait, what happened? Are you doing the Mel thing?
My bow and arrows are ready.
Did you just change outfits?
Like a snake with its prey.
What was wrong with the other outfit?
Attention.
Why'd you put that one on? I love you.
Attention.
Wait, where are you going?
Completed.
Okay. Be Melvin.
What? Okay.
Why do women wear so
My
many
bow and
outfits?
arrows are ready. You are gonna pay me for this,
I'm
right?
so confused.
A new task. What do you want now?
Who are very passionate, have a lot of drive on their own. So yes, I would.
And I know you mentioned in the Would You Rather video, like, as long as they're still contributing something, you said that you would be okay with that as long as you're not the only one who's, you're not the breadwinner, right, per se.
Yeah, and I've actually in the past had, I've made good money ever since being out of college, so I've been, fine. But at the same time, I've had unexpected things pop up. I never want to raise a family and have that kind of stress beyond multiple people. So while I make enough money and could be breadwinner of a family, I don't want to run into that problem in the future.
Got it. Yeah, especially because, money is the #1 cause of divorce. It's like, I don't even want to mess with that.
Yeah, I mean,
Is money the #1 cause of divorce?
I would.
I'm curious if the stat is on it. I feel like I've looked at different things and I've never seen that before.
And everything must be very great, too.
So what else would he have to have going for him in order for you to be okay with that?
He would have to just be a really great guy, be able to get along with my family, be a great family person. I'm very family oriented, so I want him to, at least be able to have the same going for him. Maybe he doesn't have a family, that's okay. At least be like putting my family first as well. And have goals and be able to accomplish them and have a good mindset.
A new task.
And take care of me, take care of me and myself, and put me first, and just little things too. So I guess the money doesn't have to mean anything, but as long as
Oh, I saw this. The guy
you're
kicked the truck and got shot.
prioritizing me.
Bro, fuck him.
So ideally,
Why are you kicking
you
another
would like
dude's
someone who
car?
makes more.
I would.
Get
like
fucked.
I hate to say this, but one of my first questions is I'm asking you how much money you make. I don't wanna
really?
waste your time. Yeah.
You ask that on a first date?
I mean, yeah, before I even date you.
Okay, so have you gone on dates where you've asked men that?
Yes.
And what do they say?
So I have 18 questions that I'll ask somebody when I first get to, actually it was my grandfather that asked these first 18 questions. And after he asked those first 18 questions for me to ask a man, I was like, I'm gonna keep this going. I really like where this is going, and that is how I'm able to it's a very good 18 questions.
And you just weed people out. Yeah. Sorry, you didn't
You
check
didn't make it.
Did you come from a household that discussed the concept of money? Like, were you raised in a way where you were kind of more aware?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I was.
I grew up my family has fluctuated financially significantly over the course of my life. So I'm very open-minded when it comes to how much money a person makes, and I don't equate how much money you make to a person's character. There is so many circumstances that affect how much money a person can make.
Imagine being a bad
Assuming
person
that someone makes
and
a lot of
making
money,
a lot of money.
and that
Doesn't
immediately
happen.
means they're a
Imagine
hard
being a
worker.
good
That's not
person
fucking
and being
true.
poor. Doesn't happen.
Assuming that someone makes no money and that means they are not a hard worker. That's not fucking true. There are people who work in nonprofits that are the hardest working people you will ever fucking meet, and their time is donated. They probably don't make that much money, but they're the greatest people on this planet.
Wait,
And then there are
nonprofits? You get
people who
paid. You
are
get paid for
born
working in
into
nonprofits.
jobs that they were just given.
Nonprofit
They make
doesn't
a
mean the
shit ton of
people there
money,
don't get
and they
paid.
didn't do anything to earn their work there. They might work 1 hour a day. So, as trying to attribute like characteristics to the amount of money that someone makes is just not. It's just not accurate.
That's
Yeah, there's all this talk about like being high value, and a lot of people equate that with making a lot of money, but I don't think that's true. I don't think just because you make a lot of money means that you're high value. And I think viewing people that way
Not a
is
lot,
really
she means? They pay really
detrimental
low?
and
I thought some
harmful
nonprofits
to
pay quite a bit.
relationships.
Maybe I might be wrong.
Agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
No, not really. I'm very, very fortunate. My parents did make great money. They do make great monay. I'm so fortunate. I really am. I don't mean to highlight my privilege, but that is absolutely where I come from.
Well, you can't help where you're born into.
Right. And so we really never, like, my parents always instilled just, work hard.
Rolex
and
is
the money will
nonprofit?
come.
Is that
kind of thing.
true?
And that's to me, I was always like, oh, work hard and money will come. Cool. College, right? So like we go to college, and I just graduated with my master's in December, and it's so funny now because I was even talking to my parents about like I'm very surprised on how little I'm making with a master's, and they both were like, oh, it'll come. The money comes, it comes, and I'm like, okay. Sure,
Money
and maybe
makes
that was
them
their
come.
experience. But
You
after
know what I
you're
mean.
telling me all those statistics, I'm like, I don't think so. Like, I really don't. It could. I'm not saying it could not come, but
it takes a long time to make money. It's a good money in a lot of industries.
Right. And so it does take good time, and I am very surprised though. But money was talked about, but my parents are very financially responsible as well.
Yeah.
So maybe they instilled those values in me. So now I'm like, oh, I'm kind of happy they did that because now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna save all my money.
That's a good skill to have.
Yes and no. My parents always taught us, if you buy something, buy something
BGG,
quality
Destiny
so that
Destiny.
you don't have to replace it over time, that kind of stuff. And my parents always taught us, like, you got this $20 for your birthday, you got this $10 for your birthday. Like, this is a lot of money, you take care of it. But it wasn't in the way that I think, like, when I would raise my kids, I always think of having these 3 jars. Right? And so you teach people the difference between this is your invest money. So if you want a lemonade stand, you can go buy lemons with this part of your jar. Another third goes into, savings, and then the other third is your spend fund money kind of thing.
Do you think as a society we prepare people for grasping the concept of income or just financial literacy in general?
No, not at all. No, because there's still so much stigma around how much money you make. Even like the idea of sharing your salary with people in your workspace is like a new thing. Like my team at my company, we are very big about being open about that on our teams, but like have I had managers in the past try to tell me in one-on-ones, hey, don't tell anyone how much money you make. Yeah. Do I know my legal right to do that? Yeah, so I'm gonna keep fucking talking about it. But like no one talks about it, and so we don't know. And that's kind of like the way I was raised, we didn't have a lot of money when I was really young. We moved to a township where everyone in the township made more money than my family. It was very obvious. I knew it to be true. And I still struggle with my relationship with money and how I view myself. Like I struggle with that all the time. I try to convince people I make more money than I make by the way I dress, by like the kind of laptop that I get, by just like I feel a need to convince people of it because I know that they're going to be judging me for it, even though I know I'm not probably going to judge someone for it. But like it's a social dynamic that exists, and I fucking hate that it does.
A lot of women have sat here and they want a guy who makes $1 million, but they don't understand, first of all, it takes a long time to make money.
So much, yeah.
Like, sometimes you have to grow with a person in your relationship and build your wealth together. Like, it's not just like a millionaire is gonna show up on your doorstep.
Absolutely not. Along with a lot of other things that I think we've kind of failed at. But I think people are becoming more aware, and what stinks about it at this point in time is that now people are really feeling the effect of that lack of financial literacy.
No, not at all. When I was going through school, particularly in like high school and in college, there were no financial literacy classes. I know that they try to like teach people stuff, but in my career and things that I see, people have no idea how credit works. People have no idea debt to income ratios. They have no idea how loans work. They have no idea where to even start with a lot of this stuff. And I think that's, doing a disservice to people by not educating and not teaching them. But it starts at home too. If the parents aren't financially literate, they're not going to be able to teach their kids how to be financially literate. So it starts there. I mean, my parents did a really good job teaching us, like my siblings and I, about money and those sort of things. Like, I have no debt. I don't think a lot of people my age can say that.
So you're 24 and you have no debt. That's,
Yeah, I have no school debt or anything like that, because I worked really hard for scholarships, academic scholarships, so that I could put myself through school.
Well,
Sorry. Not have to worry about paying debt.
Okay, hold on. There's a lot of things being said at the same time here. I put myself through school. Can you say that if you get a scholarship? Do people say that? No, hold on. I'm not even gonna agree with chat. Even if most of you side against me, fuck you. No, if somebody says some shit like that, I put myself through school. I'm thinking you work through school. There's nothing wrong with getting a scholarship. If you get a scholarship, that's awesome. But if somebody says, I got a scholarship, that doesn't count as putting yourself through school. Putting yourself through school means you worked and paid it off as you went through it. That's what that means. Fuck you. Even if most of you disagree with me, you're wrong. Fuck you.
Back thousands in loans for the rest of my life. Like, my parents did teach us how to be financially responsible. I can't attribute that to my upbringing. Yes, but not everybody is in that kind of a fortunate position.
Right. And I think we can learn a lot about our society by what people don't know, and financial literacy seems to be a big one.
I
and just
agree.
from interviewing people, like, most people have no idea how rare it is what they're asking for. I mean, if you're sitting here asking for a man who makes $1 million, okay, that's fine, shoot for the stars. But also, what do you bring to the table? What does that guy want from you? And understand that you're asking for
felonies.
a
I got
fraction of a
32
percent of a
felonies.
man.
I
Yeah,
got
so if you're not
33
having success in
felonies.
your dating life,
Bitch,
well, it
I'm
could
Bill
be because
Bellamy.
You're asking for something incredibly unrealistic.
And you're not bringing the value to the table either. People want everything, but they don't want to put any effort in. If you want somebody like that, you have to be willing to bring the same level of effort that that person is pulling. Like, you can't just expect somebody to hand you everything and you do nothing.
Be what you want to attract, right?
Yes.
Not as well as we could. I was homeschooled, so I had a lot of financial transparency within the education that I received, and I'm really grateful to my parents for that. But I hear that, the high schools, they don't really talk about personal finance. People will take courses in college, and that's mind-blowing to me, because unless you're in a business field, you're still not taking a personal finance course.
That is kind of mind-blowing that we don't teach finance in school or whatever. It is really
So
weird.
why they haven't integrated more
DA press conference on Trump Raymond in 35 minutes.
financial courses at the high school level, I think that's way more important than some of the other stuff that they're teaching.
Yeah, like the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Why do I need to know that?
Right. I've never used that
Right.
other than in that class that I took. So I think that the next generation would be set up so much better if they just made a couple of changes with the education that kids are receiving.
I agree too, and just like
They make
so
you take
people
econ.
understand-
Heads up. Remember. Okay, I know this sounds weird. Econ is not finance. The two have nothing to do with each other. It's like saying that, like, I'm a power lifter because I got like a PhD in biology. Econ and finance are completely separate things. They're not even remotely related to each other. They don't have anything to do with each other, okay? Not at all. They don't even deal with anything.
understand what they should be working towards, first of all, what's realistic, and what they're asking for in another person. I think expecting something of yourself is one thing, but when you're expecting it from another person, it's a whole new ball game, right? And as a woman makes more money, she typically wants to be with someone who's at her level or above, something that automatically limits the pool of men that you're selecting from, and decreases your chance of success in your dating life. I mean, even an average master's degree salary, someone who has a master's degree, is $69,786. And think of how much debt you have after going to school. It's crazy. And I think you can learn a lot about our society by what people don't know in this case. And most people don't know the statistics.
No, I don't. I really don't. I wish they taught about it, Like I really wish they did.
You would think something so important would be something that we learn.
Especially because in society too, it does matter. I mean, money matters as much as we want to say it doesn't. Maybe not in a dating, but just living. I mean, you have to buy groceries, pay rent, to live on your own, buy a car. Like, everything requires money. It does. And if
Destiny,
you're
do you think anyone in
not
high school
making
would
enough of
actually
it,
pay
that's your
attention to
life is
financial
constantly stressing
literacy?
about
I
where am
hear
I
this a
getting money
lot,
from?
but I
How
feel
do I
like
make
when I
ends
think
meet?
back
How do
to
I
my
get to
public
a
school
relationship?
experience,
How do I
half
raise
of
a
these
family?
people
How do I
wouldn't
do
pay
this?
attention
And
in a course that's like
that's
civics
so
either.
incredibly difficult.
Actually
and
true.
Nobody prepares you
Probably
for that.
true. They
You know,
probably
we don't
wouldn't
go
pay
to school and
attention.
Nobody prepares you like, hey, this is how the world works, and this is why money's important. This is why, I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't think we were prepared at all.
It does matter to an extent, and I think to say it doesn't would be silly, right?
Yes.
Because financial
Yes.
independence and being responsible, I think, matters a lot. And then money is the #1 cause of divorce, so it's like clearly X is affecting Y, and it's like a trickle-down effect,
Yes.
right? Like, it does matter.
It does. Absolutely it does.
No, I think also in our culture we're so hush-hush about talking about money, and I think that we've had this whole American dream pushed on us for so long, and what does that look like? It's the money, it's the beautiful things, it's the beautiful wife, it's the picket fence and everything else, and that.
Wow, we're getting red pilled in here, guys.
What is it? What was it? Hemingway that said this? That a lot of people think of themselves as just an embarrassed,
Temporarily embarrassed
millionaire in waiting. Yeah, a lot of people are thinking when I win the lottery, when I do this, you know, these really unrealistic expectations. And I remember from my own upbringing and education where financial literacy isn't really pushed on you. Wasn't really taught in schools. It was learn everything except how to take care of yourself, really. And I think that's been such a detriment to a lot of people, because you just see the flex in front of you. You don't see either the work behind it or the credit card debt behind it or anything else behind it. The only advice I really got was, if you can't pay off the credit card bill every month all the way, cut up the credit card.
True.
But we are such a consumer society that it's hard for people to not want to, again, you know, feed into this idea that new is better, and it's, you know, giving us a serotonin hit of new shiny things, and not really understanding that that's temporary, but that debt is there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people also don't know, like, some of the most wealthy people in the world are the most depressed. And just because you have all these nice things or make all this money, I mean, to a certain threshold, life really doesn't get much better for you.
Right.
Once you have a certain amount of things. Of course, it's nice to be, you know, not having to worry about bills and being paycheck to paycheck. But after that, it's kind of just like,
now what?
Yeah.
And if you don't have hobbies or goals or things that get you excited about getting up for the day, then you're gonna be unhappy. And again, money isn't
Okay, do we need their
something
life
that's-
philosophies? Are we done with
In
this?
my younger days, it was, yeah, sure, I would definitely have I've fell into that fantasy before, and then.
Okay, we're done with this.
Gotcha. Okay.
I need to explode this cow.
Is there like live coverage of this Trump thing right now going on?
Reporting for duty.
Can you the basics of personal finance besides budgeting? I don't know what that means. I don't know. I think you're missing a verb there, buddy. Rickroll? Is that what that is? Good one, Cake. Or Obama. Nice one.
So many targets, gonna love it. All right.
The train has arrived at the station.
Live stream.
Quite striking, but seeing that wide shot where he is at the defense table and you see the court police, he's in custody, he's in their control, I think is very striking.
It's almost like any other defendant
Right.
on any other day sitting in a courtroom. I noted, you know, having covered Trump for a long time, his body language hunched over, hands clasped between his legs. Jamie, you were talking about
Do you think Nancy
anger.
Pelosi is guilty of
That
insider
is an angry Trump.
I don't know. I've never seen any
That is
compelling evidence for
someone
it.
whose lips are pursed, his eyes are small. He's looking right at the cameras because he knows that they are there and what they're there to do. This is a frustrating moment for
Destiny
someone
van Hal Griffin
who,
measures Figo factorially.
actually
With this run of
has
stealing
tried in
issues.
so many ways to use the justice system to do things that he has wanted it to do, and has been frustrated when it hasn't happened. And now he finds that he is, he calls himself a victim, but he is now the subject of the justice system itself, and it's a frustrating moment for him, I'm sure.
And he's forced today to live in reality. We're reading body language right now. Pretty soon we'll get to read an indictment. That's the most important thing that will happen today, seeing what's actually on paper and what they can lay out, to Carrie's point about how do they connect the dots here. But reading his body language, this is a man, Andy mentioned CEOs in court, average Joe's in court. But this has to be a thud for him because he lives in a fantasy land. He's going to go back to Mar-a-Lago tonight, where he has an office that he made deliberately to look like the Oval Office, where they have napkins with a seal that looks like the presidential seal. He calls his plane Trump Force One. He insists that everybody call him Mr. President. He says that Joe Biden lost the election and that he should have been reinstated already. He's not in that world anymore. He's a defendant in a trial case right now. One other point I just want to make. I'm just looking at Twitter. Donald Trump Jr. just tweeted a picture of the judge's daughter saying she worked for the Biden-Harris campaign, seems to be relevant. It is not relevant. It is not relevant. She's an individual adult. But this is what I was about to say. This is the game they play. It's not a game. It's not a game. This is how they play. Right. They try to intimidate, they attack, and they put at risk people who should not be dragged into this process. If Donald Trump is presumed innocent, if he can beat these charges, good for him. The judge's daughter has nothing to do with this, but this is what they do. This is how they have so taken this country off the rails and outside the norms.
And there's a reason why they took the prosecutor's pictures off the website for similar reasons, and it's really unfortunate that that is a world in which we live, and you have people on social media doing what you just described. Another thing that I keep thinking about is that Trump fought back against media companies, against businesses, you name it, for decades, trying to use the threat of lawsuits by doing that. One of the people in recent years, before he became president, that he used as his chief henchman, this is what he calls himself, was Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was the man who kept him out of the very situation that we are looking at that he is in right now. And today, because Michael Cohen turned after he took the fall for Donald Trump, that is why Donald Trump is sitting there right now. The man that he employed put him there. And again, it is not only necessarily Michael Cohen's testimony. We believe there's certainly documentation and evidence that are going to go into these 34 counts that we're going to see soon, but that turn of events is quite noteworthy.
Karen, I want to ask you a question and then throw back to Anderson. When somebody within the former president's circle, like his son, or a campaign, or people directly affiliated with him, posts an image of the daughter of the judge at a time where political violence is increasingly becoming more and more normal and more accepted, is that something that the judge could admonish the defendant and those in his immediate circle to not do, or is that something that people just now accept as a modern reality?
No, that will not be accepted. That will not be okay. In fact, the fact that this is going on significantly longer than anyone would have anticipated, and much longer than a normal arraignment, leads me to believe that the judge is having some sort of very serious discussions in court right now, because
the arraignment is happening right
all
now,
the
but it's
things
private.
that Donald Trump wants to do, make the arguments about whether the statute of limitations or sufficiency of the grand jury, or whether a charge counts as elevating it to a false business record, that will all be done in writing, in motion practice. It will be briefed by lawyers at another date. Right now, the only thing
What's
that's
an
happening
arraignment?
in court, it's just supposed to be an arraignment. It would not be anything about custody or bail, since this crime is not bail eligible.
So a grand jury reviewed some evidence that was brought to them by prosecutors, and the grand jury has to decide, hey, are we going to charge this man, Donald J. Trump, with a crime? They've decided, yes, we are going to charge him with a crime. And so the next step of that is, once they file the paperwork, now there's an arraignment. An arraignment is when a person is essentially arrested or detained, I guess, right? Or a person is brought to a courthouse where a judge is going to read off, hey, just so you know, you're being formally charged with a crime. These are the crimes that you're charged with. I think you have the ability right now to enter a guilty or not guilty plea, and then I think you're taken into custody, and then the court process begins. I think he is being arrested now, right, after this, after the arraignment, or...
that's another, they are committing more crimes. And so whether he gets arrested for them is a decision that will have to be made by law enforcement. But I can assure you,
I don't know if he goes back tomorrow.
Judge,
He might go
Judge
back home on
Merchan
house
is
arrest. I'm not
going
sure.
to
He might not get.
put up with
He might not
it.
go to jail. He might
And
go
this
back to
judge
house
knows
arrest.
the Trump organization and Trump and his ways and his allies. He sat and was the judge who presided over the Trump organization trial. So he is not a stranger to the ways of Donald Trump and Donald Trump's orbit. And he will absolutely have a pre-prepared and pre-planned speech and admonition that he is giving to he is defendant Trump right now before Judge Merchan, and letting him know what that means and what, as the judge of this court, will expect of him as a defendant.
Anderson, back to you.
Yeah, Adam Kaufman, who's been watching this. Adam,
so in a YouTube chat said he's not getting arrested. They offered to do this over a Zoom call.
One possible thing that the judge is discussing. What else would account for the length of time here? We had talked earlier about
how would going to jail even work
this
with Secret Service protection. Literally, nobody has any idea. I don't think anybody knows.
Of facts, or if it's a lengthier indictment that sort of tells a story. I'm wondering if that plays a role here as well.
You know, Anderson, it's not. Unless they didn't waive the reading of the indictment. That's certainly a possibility, in which case they're reading however many pages and however many counts this is. In 18 years as a prosecutor, I never saw that happen. But it's certainly possible. But it's, to Karen's point, an arraignment takes 5 minutes. It's over and done with. Especially here, there's no bail consideration. There's nothing really to talk about.
No bail.
Motions are made on
he's
papers. They're not made orally.
Arrested.
Even if defense counsel wanted to stand up and give a speech for 5 minutes about how outrageous this is, I still can't imagine what could possibly be taking this much time.
What the?
Karen, we had talked earlier about Adam had brought up the idea of a conspiracy count. Talk a little bit about what that might entail if, in fact, there is such a thing, and why that would be important.
Yeah, so interestingly, what it says right there on the monitor, Trump pleads not guilty to 34 felony counts. What that tells me is there may not be a conspiracy charge, because the charges that we expect to see here are falsifying a business record in the first degree, which is a Class E felony, the lowest level felony. And a conspiracy to commit that crime would make it an A misdemeanor. So to Adam's point that he made earlier about what would the...
I'm sorry, Karen, it looks like they're about to come out of the courtroom. Let's listen into the hall.
How did you plead, President Trump? How did you plead?
You know the DA is getting around the statute of limitations? Yeah, there's a way to do that. I'll explain after this, I think.
So obviously any thought that the former president was going to be coming to cameras and not obviously not happening. Whether or not he wanted to, we don't know. He is still in the custody, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ellie, he is still in the custody of authorities.
He is until he walks out that door, Anderson. He is in the custody of the Manhattan District Attorney's office. He presumably has been released on his own recognizance, which means he will come back tomorrow whenever he is told. We should get a sense of what the schedule is. What we will learn coming out of this, of course, the biggest thing is the indictment itself. And we're still waiting on that. It has now been unsealed. It should be available to the public. It's possible they were waiting for this proceeding to end before they posted it. We also should get a sense of the schedule moving forward. When will discovery be due? And when will motions be made? So we'll have a sense of how this is going to proceed. And we'll also learn, presumably, what took so long in there. Was the judge talking to them about some of the over-the-line statements that have been made?
Karen, just in terms of what is happening right now, so the former president has left the courtroom. Where does he go from here?
So now they are going to take him out of the building probably the same way that they brought him in, which is through a separate elevator that's typically only available to judges and the district attorney. They'll take him from the 15th floor all the way down to the first floor, where he will then walk out of what's the Hogan Place entrance. This street right here is called Hogan Place. It's a very tiny little street in Lower Manhattan named after District Attorney Hogan, and they'll put him in a car, and it's over.
So at what point is he no longer in custody when you exit?
He's no longer in custody now. He's under guard because they have to protect him. But as soon as he's released from court, he's no longer in custody.
We believe he's leaving now, I believe, John.
So presumably he was released on his own recognizance. We have ears in the courtroom, but they're trying to get to places to communicate to us. But he'll get in the same motorcade package that brought him here. That will take him back to LaGuardia Airport, where his plane is standing by, and he is scheduled to fly out of New York today. Now, this is all subject to change, but the plan was to fly out of New York today on his private jet to Mar-a-Lago without coming back to Trump Tower to hold a press conference. And what we've seen is, for all the discussions about making a statement on the way in or a statement on the way out at the courthouse, that obviously didn't happen. So
wonder why he didn't make any statements.
That motorcade is now on the move.
Also standing by, Laura Coates, John Dean are joining us. Laura Coates.
Trump seems like a guy that likes making statements, right? I don't know.
Now leaving.
I wonder if that means it was like really bad, or
maybe
they just don't have any plans.
They're heading back to either, John, do you think Trump Tower or do you think the airport?
He has a press conference tonight at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, but they don't want to say anything to the cameras coming out of the arraignment courthouse or whatever.
And straight back to Palm Beach.
It's kind of weird.
Laura
Maybe
Coates, what do you make of the lengthy arraignment?
Well, listen, there has only been 46 presidents in the history of our country and millions of criminal defendants. And look what we have now. One who is now a criminal defendant on his way out of a courtroom, an extraordinary amount of time to have him there. He is likely trying to argue a point about the relevance of this particular case. I assume his lawyers were the ones to do so. But note who was behind him in that courtroom. You didn't have Secret Service. You had two presumable marshals, one with handcuffs dangling on her own waistband and appeared to wear gloves. You're seeing the conduct of what would happen for every criminal defendant in this country, and Donald Trump was now one of them. Going forward, the schedule is going to be so important. Importantly, Anderson, look for that pre-trial motion briefing schedule. That's where you'll have the motions to dismiss. That's where you'll have the challenges as to whether this is likely to be an appropriate elevation from a misdemeanor to a felony offense. That's going to be the next consequential step here. And of course,
when does the public get the unsealed indictments? Is this happening anytime soon?
We know the law and order adage. Anything he says can and will be used against him, including his statements on social media and even through different agents on his behalf.
If you have extra stones, start building walls? I have no extra stones.
I want to go to Caitlin Collins, who is on the 15th floor. Caitlin, very brief glimpse of the former president as he exited the courthouse. I'm wondering from your vantage point what you saw.
Well, remarkable, Anderson, that he did not come over to reporters. We were about 50 feet away from where he was there, and he was expected to come speak to us before, but he was in that courtroom for about 45 minutes or so, much longer, or I would say a little bit longer than what his attorneys had said beforehand. They believed he was going to be in there for. They had predicted about 30 minutes or so, and they had expected it to be a relatively smooth process. He obviously did not look pleased coming out of that courtroom. I will say, we saw officers come out, and the metal barricades, you could see they turned them around. And the way the barricades look is like a claw thing in the middle. They touched them. So it did not appear
she was talking to Soros.
It's unclear why. We've asked officials here, why the barricades were there in the direct access to it, but that is, ultimately part of why he did not come over to the media as we were standing there. Obviously did not look pleased. You could see it on his face, despite his attorney saying that, he was in a resilient mood earlier today.
Let's go straight to Kara Scannell.
So it's going to be a week, Swarm.
Kara, what have you learned?
An hour. I'm in a very crowded space, so I hope you can hear me.
I hear you, Kara. Go ahead, you're on the air.
The former president pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Those are all felony counts.
All 34 counts were just on the falsifying records?
In 2015 and involved the payment of
is that one? Do we know that, or is she just speaking?
Stormy Daniels, as part of the The allegations, prosecutors said that this was part of an effort to promote his candidacy by burying negative stories ahead of the election. And now we don't have all the additional details of what else might be included in this, but that is how they outlined it in court. Now, in this brief, well, it was about a 45-minute arraignment, when the former president entered the room, it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. He walked in, he licked his lips, he was scanning each of the rows.
Thanks for the dramatic rating.
There were about 60 members of the press in there, each row flanked by court security officers. We were not allowed to use any electronic devices, so we've all kind of been filing out now to report the news. He spoke only a few times. He entered the plea not guilty on his own. He also was addressed by the judge, who addressed to him some of the threatening statements that he made. That was something that prosecutors had raised. They had asked the judge not to impose any kind of gag order, but just to raise the potential issues of Trump's threatening social media posts. They handed up copies of those posts to the court and to Trump. The judge said that he was not going to impose any kind of gag order. He said he wouldn't even if he was asked right now, but he did warn the former and also the prosecutors to warn their witnesses to tamp down their rhetoric, to reduce what they were saying about the case, and the judge warned both sides, but particularly speaking to former President Trump, not to make any statements that would incite any violence or threats against any officials. You know, the former president has forgotten.
Oh, hey, Tier 5, call in.
We're having a problem with Kara. We'll try to get back in contact. Ellie Honig.
So, Anderson, we are getting our first look at the indictment, and with the proviso that we've not yet had a chance to read all of it, a couple of initial impressions. First of all, this is what we call a bare bones indictment, contrary to what we were discussing before. This essentially just lays out the statutory language, the name, the date of each offense, but there is not a lot of detail in what we're seeing at this moment. There do appear to be 34 charges in here. There does not appear to be, and we're looking at it for the first time, there does not appear to be a conspiracy charge per se. Now, that doesn't mean they can still explain the whole scheme at trial, but it looks like these are charges based on falsifying of business records and then falsifying business records in order to commit or conceal some other crime. So those are some initial impressions as we page through this indictment for the first time.
Karen?
Yeah, and interestingly, it does not...
By the way, where are you getting this?
At your service.
I
read
was
it on
given
Twitter.
a copy.
Okay, go ahead.
But I have been given they did file a statement of facts in addition to this bare bones indictment. The indictment itself doesn't talk about whether or not the
there's not going to be anything good in the indictment.
Upon to bump it up from a misdemeanor to a felony.
That's what we want to know.
Information.
Okay, here's my understanding of it so far. If a lawyer wants to come in quick, go for it. So the problem is falsifying records is like a Class Z misdemeanor. That's some shit where you come in and you like fucking pay $20 and you leave. It's just stupid. Nobody cares about this shit. The only way to now, why people are saying that this is political, why people are frustrated over this, is that in order to bump that up from a Class Z misdemeanor to something that's actually worthwhile, is you have to overcome the statute of limitations, meaning the time to press charges for that crime has already expired. I think it's like 3 years something. It's already expired for when those payments were made. But if that misdemeanor was committed in order to cover up another crime, so something related to election fraud or misappropriation of campaign funds or whatever, if it was committed to cover up another crime, that means that now you can upgrade these charges to something where the statute of limitations wouldn't have passed. But that's what we want to know from the indictments. Everybody wants to know, what are you saying that he was covering up these payments for? Nobody actually gives a fuck about these misdemeanor charges. They want to know why these misdemeanor charges were upgraded. If we don't get that information today, we're not really getting anything, which sucks, but...
The business records of various entities in New York. So the DA's office here is relying on election laws as the crimes that were being either concealed or committed to elevate the falsifying business records to a felony. It says one component of the scheme was that at the defendant's request, a lawyer who then worked...
Hello? Who joined?
Oh, it's esports.
Hi.
You were asking for a lawyer.
Wait,
I think
hold on. I think somebody just linked these indictments. Are these the indictments?
Looks like it.
Is it people? The lady here just said that it was just standard language.
Let me.
And that's what it
see.
looks like.
This is the first time I'm looking at it too, so give me just a second.
The defendant in the county of New York and elsewhere on or about February 14th, 2017, with intent to defraud and intent to commit another crime and aid and conceal the commission thereof, made and caused a false entry in the business records of an enterprise. But we're not going to know what that other crime is, right? That's not in these indictments.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it is.
This is literally a Mr. Girl hit. Well, because this is just copy pasted. Every single count is going to be the exact same, right?
Yeah. Hold on. Am I super fucking loud? Turn the mix down. All right. Yeah, it looks like it's. There doesn't seem to be anything. It's just saying that it's according to invoices by Michael Cohen.
Yeah. So each of these charges, I'm guessing, is probably just for another entry in the books.
Yeah. Each entry. Well, they kind of already hinted at that. That each entry in the books is going to be its own count.
Yeah, of course. Which is, I think, kind of normal. But I think But what we're curious about is the other crime that's being covered up.
Yeah, and I think that's the bigger issue. The other thing that's missing here, and that's going to go to your discussion of the statute of limitations and the difficulty with that, is going to be the lack of a conspiracy charge. Because I don't know if you saw what I linked earlier, but there was a New York attorney who was talking about the fact that for a first-degree conspiracy charge, there is no statute of limitations.
But we don't see any of that in these indictments.
Yeah.
So how can they charge these with intent to cover up another crime? Can they do that without charging the other crime?
I mean, presumably that's going to come out during trial, or it's going to come out during discovery or subsequent stuff.
Wait, hold on. That can't. What you just said can't be real. You can charge me with a crime past the statute of limitations with the hope that in discovery you can figure out something to make that charge stick?
No. What I'm saying is, as far as we understanding the public, that's going to be probably subject to later on when we find out. That may be something that they have already discussed as part of this. But to that same end, it depends on what they're going to do. I'd be interested to see exactly what the DA is going to do, because, like I said, yes, it's very bare bones, but it doesn't even include like facts or anything. It just says due to a invoice given to Michael Cohen and a Donald J. Trump revocable trust account bearing check number. Okay, so they are.
Wait, also, can I ask? Can you charge other crimes during discovery?
Yes. Like, you can have superseding indictment. Look at FTX, great example, where they're constantly finding new stuff based on what they're finding through the initial investigations with Sam Bankman-Fried. It's called a superseding indictment, and that's it, or subsequent
There's no
indictments.
reason for it to go in
the
the
idea
bottom
being
right
that as you, especially with complicated criminal transactions,
I don't know.
you
if I
might
can
find
recover
additional
from this.
stuff. Let me see if I can just find a good example for chat to just link it. But it's additional charges that are filed after the original indictment, and here you go.
I mean, I'll just tell me. I believe you. I was curious.
Well, no, I mean, it's from another law firm in case you want, But the idea here is that they're going to. Okay, let's see. Your thoughts on this? That's a lot of felony counts. Well, yeah, we're reading it right now. But the idea is that once you find more additional information, you can make additional charges.
But they must already have the conspiracy in mind, though, to overcome the statute of limitations on this, right?
Well, what's super interesting about this is not just the fact that they have the information, but more to the fact that they're identifying individual check numbers. So, presumably, they're going to be able to more or less tell people what's going on. This is...
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
wait. Are you reading the statement of fact?
Statement of fact.
Okay.
Yep. Here we go.
This,
okay. Yep.
Okay. The defendant, Donald J. Trump, repeatedly and fraudulently falsified New York business records to conceal criminal conduct that hid damaging information from the voting public during the 2016 presidential election. From August 2015 to December Oh, wait, hold on. Are you here?
Understood.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, these are criminal charges, meaning all of this has to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
You
Now,
know,
August
all
25th
this
to
means to
December
me is
2017,
that
the
it's
defendant
actually
orchestrated a scheme with
Biden who's
others to
doing that
influence the
bullshit.
2016 presidential election by identifying and purchasing negative information about him to suppress its publication and benefit the defendant's electoral prospects. So this is the scheme that people were talking about that was going to be tried legally that I believe is untested, or I don't know if anybody's done a charge like this before, but the idea is essentially that they found these fraudulent business transactions, but they're upgrading these because it's in the commission of another crime, which is trying to influence the election through payments that weren't properly accounted for. But it'll get more
well, that last sentence is also super interesting, right? The participants also took steps that mischaracterized for tax purposes the true natures of the payment made in furtherance of the scheme.
Yeah.
To me, that seems like they might also be going for a tax angle to say that they were trying to shield, basically commit tax fraud.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, but it's got to be something more severe for Donald J. Trump, the ex-president of the United States. It's got to be something more than tax.
I mean, they got him on tax for Capone, so...
Yeah, but again, but we'll see. In order to execute the unlawful scheme, the participants violated election laws, this is, I think, a big one, and made and caused false entries in the business records of various entities in the state of New York. The participants also took steps that mischaracterized, for tax purposes, the true nature of the payments made in furtherance of the scheme. One component of the scheme was that, at the defendant's request, a lawyer who then worked for the Trump Organization as special counsel to defendant, Lawyer A, this is Michael Cohen, I believe, covertly paid $130,000 to an adult film actress shortly before the election to prevent her from publicizing a sexual encounter with the defendant. This would be Stormy Daniels, I believe. Lawyer A made the $130,000 payment through a shell corporation he set up and funded at a bank in Manhattan. This payment was illegal, and Lawyer A has since pleaded guilty to making an illegal campaign contribution and served time in prison. Further, false entries were made in New York business records to effectuate this payment, separate and apart from the New York business records used to conceal the payment. After the election, the defendant reimbursed Lawyer A for the illegal payment through a series of monthly checks. First, from the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust, the defendant's trust, a trust created under the laws of New York, which held the Trump Organization entity assets after the defendant was elected president, and then from the defendant's bank account. Each check was processed by the Trump Organization, and each check was disguised as a payment for legal services rendered in a given month of 2017 pursuant to a retainer agreement. The payment records kept and maintained by the Trump Organization were false New York business records. In truth, there was no retainer agreement, and Lawyer A was not being paid for legal services rendered in 2017. The defendant caused his entity's business records to be falsified to disguise his and others' criminal conduct. Wait, so far, the only criminal conduct described is the tax thing, right?
And the falsification of
what? But I mean, the thing that would upgrade it from the misdemeanor to the to the felony.
And then
okay, all right.
The potentially, because there's a sovereignty issue with potential election fraud payments as far as to whether or not that the state can get involved in that.
Sure.
But we'll see how that once shakes out.
Yeah, okay. Background. The defendant is the beneficial owner of a collection of business entities known by the trade name the Trump Organization. The Trump Organization comprises approximately 507 entities that, among other business activities, own and manage hotels, golf courses, commercial real estate, condominium developments, and other properties. The Trump Organization is headquartered at 725 Fifth Avenue in New York County. From approximately June 2015 to November 2016, the defendant was a candidate for the office of President of the United States. On January 20th, 2017, he became President of the United States. The scheme. The catch and kill scheme to suppress negative information. During and in furtherance of his candidacy for president, the defendant and others agreed to identify and suppress negative stories about him. Two parties to this agreement have admitted to committing illegal conduct in connection with the scheme. In August, the two parties, one is Michael Cohen, who's the second person?
Probably Pecker, who is the head of the National Enquirer.
What was illegal about what he did?
I guess because he worked as an intermediary to broker the deals, and because my understanding was the National Enquirer more or less facilitated a lot of the stories being bought, and the negative headed off much of the publicity that would be negative towards Donald Trump. It has been long rumored that Trump was like an informant for the National Enquirer, so a lot of like the celebrity gossip that they were getting their hands on happens to do with that. Alan Weisselberg is another person who is the former CFO of the Trump industry, so it could be him as well.
Okay.
As far
someone
as
in chat
this...
link, the Why Silver guy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. In August of 2018, lawyer A, that's Cohen, pleaded guilty to 2 federal crimes involving legal campaign contribution to subsequently served time in prison. In addition, in August of 2018, American Media Inc., AMI, a media company that owned and published magazines and supermarket tabloids, including the National Enquirer, admitted in a non-prosecution agreement that it made a payment to a source of a story to ensure that the source did not publicize damaging allegations about the defendant before the 2016 presidential election and thereby influence that election.
And that non-prosecution agreement is going to be super interesting because the details of that, as far as what they testify to, is going to be instructive for a lot of things, because it might open up the case to not just be about Stormy Daniels or what was the other one, Karen McDougal, I think it is.
Some other porn
It might involve other people, and it might involve other stories or other payoffs over the years.
In 2015 Trump Tower meeting. In June of 2015, the defendant announced his candidacy for president of the United States. Soon after, in August 2015, the defendant met with lawyer A and AMI's chairman and chief executive officer, the AMI CEO, at Trump Tower in New York County. At the meeting, the AMI CEO agreed to help with the defendant's campaign, saying that he would act as the eyes and ears for the campaign by looking out for negative stories about the defendant and alerting lawyer A before the stories were published. The AMI CEO also agreed to publish negative stories about the defendant's competitors for the election. Jeez. Suppressing the Dorman story. A few months later, in or about October or November of 2015, the AMI CEO learned that a former Donald Trump doorman, the doorman, was trying to sell information regarding a child that the defendant had allegedly fathered out of wedlock. Oh my god, he's getting Drake meeked or whatever? What the fuck is it?
So this actually, I guess this implies a potential third woman at the very least.
Maybe. Well, wait, I don't even know if this is true. Let me just keep reading it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. At the AMI CEO's direction, the AMI negotiated and signed an agreement to pay the doorman $30,000 to acquire exclusive rights to the story. AMI falsely characterized this payment in AMI's books and records, including in its general ledger. AMI purchased the information from the doorman without fully investigating his claims, but the AMI CEO directed that the deal take place because of his agreement with the defendant and lawyer A. Or Pusher T, not me. Oh, my bad. When AMI later concluded that the story was not true, the AMI CEO wanted to release the doorman from the agreement. However, lawyer A instructed the AMI CEO not to release the doorman until after the presidential election, and the AMI CEO complied with the instruction because of his agreement with the defendant and lawyer A. I think that the search and kill shit is probably okay, or the catch and kill scheme for news stories is probably okay, but probably not to influence an election. I think as a normal, mean of business, you can buy and kill stories if you want to do that, but I don't think you can do it for the purposes of influencing an election. I think that might be
Well, here's the other problem. You're now, with the help of AMI, establishing not a one-off or a two-off. You're potentially establishing a revolving business, a consistent, which is where the conspiracy comes in, and this is also where the whispers of RICO charges have come into play, where if you have a consistent criminal enterprise where you're engaging in this regularly, that could be a big deal. And I think that's where they're going with this, which is they're opening up the door with AMI to say, here are all the things that Trump has done over the years to act as an informant, but also engage in business records manipulation through these payoffs. And here is the proof of that through AMI.
Gotcha. All right, ready? When AMI later concluded the story was not true, blah, blah, blah. Okay, read this. Okay. Suppressing Woman 1's account. About 5 months before the presidential election, in or about June 2016, the editor-in-chief of the National Enquirer and AMI's chief content officer, the AMI editor-in-chief, contacted lawyer A about a woman, Woman 1, who alleged that she had a sexual relationship with the defendant while he was married. I believe this is Stormy Daniels, right? The AMI editor-in-chief updated lawyer A regularly about the matter over text message and by telephone. The defendant did not want this information to become public because he was concerned about the effect it could have on his candidacy. Thereafter, the defendant, the AMI CEO, and lawyer A had a series of discussions about who should pay off Woman 1 to secure her silence. AMI ultimately paid $150,000 to Woman 1 in exchange for her agreement not to speak out about the alleged sexual relationship, as well as for 2 magazine cover features of Woman 1 and a series of articles that would be published under her byline. There's another topic for Trump's hypocrisy. Trump threw Cohen buying stories from crooked media. You can't trust the media. I bought all this. Oh, true. True, actually. Oh, no. You can never criticize Trump for that, because if you point out to conservatives like, well, look, isn't Trump kind of breaking the media? Then all the conservatives say, oh, well, he's just playing the same game everybody else is playing. The media's already rigged. Yeah. Dave Chappelle had a bit about this where he called him an honest liar, basically. AMI falsely characterized the payment in AMI's books and records, including in its general ledger. This is another reason why I think that what they did is probably illegal. I mean, there's probably a law we can just look at, but like, it was probably illegal. That's probably why they're mischaracterizing the payments, because they know this is legal, right? The AMI CEO agreed to the deal after discussing it with both the defendant and lawyer A, and on the understanding from lawyer A that the defendant or the Trump organization would reimburse AMI. Oh, the $150K was to Catherine McDougal. Gotcha. In a conversation captured in an audio recording in approximately September 2016 concerning Woman One's account, the defendant and lawyer A discussed how to obtain the rights to Woman One's story, Woman One's account from AMI, and how to reimburse AMI for its payment. Lawyer A told the defendant he would open up a company for the transfer of Woman One's account and other information, and stated that he had spoken to the chief financial officer for the Trump organization, the TOCFO, about how to set the whole thing up. The defendant asked, so what do we got to pay for this, $150, and suggested paying by cash. When lawyer A disagreed, the defendant then mentioned payment by check. After the conversation, lawyer A created a shell company called Resolution Consultants, LLC, on or about September 30th, 2016. Less than 2 months before the election, on or about September 30th, 2016, the AMI CEO signed an agreement in which AMI agreed to transfer its rights to Woman One's account, the lawyer A shell company, for $125,000. However, after the assignment agreement was signed, but before the reimbursement took place, the AMI CEO consulted with AMI's general counsel and then told lawyer A that the deal to transfer rights to lawyer A's shell company was off. Suppressing Woman 2's account. About 1 month before the election, on or about October 7th, 2016, news broke that the defendant had been caught on tape saying to the host of Access Hollywood, "I just start kissing them, women. It's like a magnet, just kiss. I don't even wait, and when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything." The evidence shows that both the defendant and his campaign staff were concerned that the tape would harm his visibility or viability as a candidate and reduce his standing with female voters in particular. Shortly after the Access Hollywood tape became public, the AMI editor-in-chief contacted the AMI CEO about another woman, Woman 2, who alleged she had a sexual encounter with the defendant while he was married. The AMI CEO told the AMI editor-in-chief to notify lawyer A. On or about October 10th, 2016, the AMI editor-in-chief connected lawyer A with Woman 2's lawyer, lawyer B. Lawyer A then negotiated a deal with lawyer B to secure Woman 2's silence and prevent disclosure of the damaging information in the final weeks before the presidential election. Under the deal that lawyer B negotiated, Woman 2 would be paid $130,000 for the rights to her account. Damn, these women just fuck a guy and get paid big bucks for it. The defendant directed lawyer A to delay making a payment to Woman 2 as long as possible. He instructed lawyer A that if they could delay the payment until after the election, they could avoid paying altogether. What? The defendant directed lawyer A to delay making a payment to Woman 2 as long as possible. He instructed lawyer A that if they could delay the payment until after the election, they could avoid paying altogether. Because at that point, it would not matter if the story became public. As reflected in emails and text messages between and among lawyer A, lawyer B, and the AMI editor-in-chief, lawyer A attempted to delay making payment as long as possible. Ultimately, with pressure mounting and the election approaching, the defendant agreed to the payoff and directed lawyer A to proceed. Lawyer A discussed the deal with the defendant and the TOCFO. The defendant did not want to make the $130,000 payment himself and asked lawyer A and the TOCFO to find a way to make the payment. After discussing various payment options with the TOCFO, lawyer A agreed he would make the payment. Before making the payment, lawyer A confirmed with the defendant that the defendant would pay him back. On or about October 26th, shortly after speaking with the defendant on the phone, lawyer A opened a bank account in Manhattan in the name of Essential Consultants LLC, a new shell company he had created to effectuate the payment. He then transferred $131,000 from his personal home equity line of credit into that account. On or about October 27th, lawyer A wired $130,000 from his Essential Consultants LLC account in New York to lawyer B to suppress Woman 2's account. Post-election communications with AMI CEO. On November 8th, 2016, the defendant won the presidential election and became the president-elect. Thereafter, AMI released both the doorman and Woman 1 from their NDAs, their non-disclosure agreements. Isn't HELOC only for personal renovations in their house? I thought it was, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you can get HELOC for anything. I don't know. The defendant was inaugurated as president on January 20th, 2017. Between Election Day and Inauguration Day, during the period of the defendant's transition to his role as president, the defendant met with the AMI CEO privately in Trump Tower in Manhattan. The defendant thanked the AMI CEO for handling the stories of the doorman and Woman 1 and invited the AMI CEO to the inauguration. The summer of 2017, the defendant invited the AMI CEO to the White House for a dinner to thank him for his help during the campaign. The defendant falsified business records. Shortly after being elected president, the defendant arranged to reimburse lawyer A for the payoff he made on the defendant's behalf. In or around January 2017, the TO CFO and lawyer A met to discuss how lawyer A would be reimbursed for the money he paid to ensure Woman 2's silence. The TO CFO asked lawyer A to bring a copy of a bank statement for the Essential Consultants account showing the $130,000 payment. The TO CFO and lawyer A agreed to a total repayment of amount of $420,000. Blaze it! They reached the figure by adding a $130,000 payment to a $50,000 payment for another expense, for which lawyer A also claimed reimbursement, for a total of $180K. The TO CFO then doubled the amount to $360,000 so that lawyer A could characterize the payment as income on his tax returns instead of a reimbursement, and lawyer A would be left with $180,000 after paying approximately $50,000 or 50% in income taxes. Finally, the TO CFO added an additional $60K as a supplemental year-end bonus. Together, these amounts totaled $420,000. The TO CFO memorialized these calculations in handwritten notes, a copy of the bank statement that lawyer A had provided. The defendant, the TO CFO, and lawyer A then agreed that lawyer A would be paid the $420,000 through 12 monthly payments of $35,000 over the course of 2017. Each month, lawyer A was to send an invoice to the defendant through Trump Organization employees, falsely requesting payment of $35,000 for legal services rendered in a given month of 2017, pursuant to a retainer agreement. At no point did lawyer A have a retainer agreement with the defendant of the Trump Organization. They couldn't even fake a retainer. In early February 2017, the defendant and lawyer A met in the Oval Office of the White House and confirmed this repayment arrangement. On or about February 14, 2017, lawyer A emailed the controller of the Trump Organization, the TO controller, the first monthly invoice, which stated, pursuant to the retainer agreement, kindly remit payment for services rendered for the months of January and February 2017. The invoice requested payment in the amount of $35,000 for each of these 2 months. The TO CFO approved the payment, and in turn, the TO controller sent the invoice to the Trump Organization Accounts Payable Supervisor, the TO Accounts Payable Supervisor, the following instructions: post to legal expenses, put retainer for the months of January, February 2017 in the description. They're interviewing Trump's lawyer right now. Wait, on which, or just link to the YouTube video afterwards. Lawyer A submitted 10 similar monthly invoices by email to the Trump Organization for the remaining months of 2017. Each invoice falsely stated that it was being submitted pursuant to the retainer agreement and falsely requested payment for services rendered for a month of 2017. In fact, there was no such retainer agreement, and lawyer A was not being paid for services rendered any months of 2017. The TO controller forwarded each invoice to the TO Accounts Payable Supervisor. Consistent with the TO controller's initial instructions, the TO Accounts Payable Supervisor printed out each invoice and marked it with an accounts payable stamp in the General Ledger Code 51505 for legal expenses. The Trump Organization maintained the invoices as records of expenses paid. As instructed, the TO Accounts Payable Supervisor recorded each payment of the Trump Organization, falsely describing it as a legal expense. A digital entry agreement calling a voucher, and these vouchers, like vouchers or expenses, became part of the general ledgers. Is there anything interesting in here? Check stub falsely recorded the payment as retainer. The remaining 9 checks, corresponding to the months of April to December, were paid by the defendant personally. Oh, the interview is muted top right.
Attorney/fixer to Stormy Daniels. One is a $150,000 payment made from the National Enquirer parent company, AMI, to Karen McDougal, a former Playboy Playmate of the Month, who also had alleged a relationship with Donald Trump. And then third, a payment from AMI to a doorman for a claim he was making that AMI later determined to be false. Do you dispute those 3 actions, which I'm not sure? I mean, I suspect that the district attorney is alleging that these are violations of federal election laws, even though I don't think they go after the president, the former president, for those laws. But do you dispute these assertions that these 3 actions happen?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to try the case with you that way or piecemeal it. Let me just say, like, that's not going to add up to a case where Alvin Bragg has jurisdiction. Never mind the complete lack of discretion. Never mind the fact that it's a personal political persecution when it comes to announcing target first and trying to string together evidence later. But that's what it goes to. When you have a guy that runs for office saying, I will get Donald Trump, it shouldn't be a surprise that he will string together a flimsy case because he feels like, hey, this is how I got here, I've got to do it. And it turns upside down how prosecutors are supposed to act in this country. They're supposed to begin judiciously. And that's not where we are. We're picking and choosing a target try to pin charges on, and it's a sad day.
Do you know any details about what happened when Mr. Trump went in for processing before he went into the courtroom?
Let me use the restroom quick, 1 sec.
Yeah, I don't. Again, I'm on the Mar-a-Lago and J6 side of things. The last thing that the New York team needed was a bunch of phone calls from me for media consumption. I assume it was what everybody predicted. This is for all of the excitement, all of the hoopla, it's actually a very routine court appearance. They're handled consistently. Other white-collar cases that I've had have kind of gone down the same road when you talk about, turning yourself in to face the charges in the arraignment. So I suspect that was pretty easily done.
We're told that the prosecution in the courtroom raised issues about some of Mr. Trump's social media postings, worried about inciting, and the judge told everybody, not just Donald Trump, but told everybody to watch what they say in terms of inciting. As somebody who represents Donald Trump on other issues, the January 6th and the documents cases that the special counsel here in D.C. are investigating, is that of issue to you? Is that of concern that Donald Trump, President Trump, does go on social media and gets his base whipped up?
Well, it would certainly be a concern if the judge issued a gag order, kind of completing the cycle for DOJ and for New York and Georgia in trying to silence the leading contender for presidency. It would be an amazing moment to think that First Amendment would allow them to gag him. So they made a run at it. The judge basically said, I don't want to see anything. I hope that the judge is also equal-handed when it comes to leaks, because at least on the DOJ side, and I suspect from what I've seen in New York so far it'll be the same, that there are one-sided leaks, incomplete leaks, leaks to pressure witnesses that are flying out by the dozen. So, there's a lot of behavioral stuff that needs to be looked at on the prosecution side. I'm not too worried about an occasional truth or an occasional moment where a man who has every right to be frustrated says something publicly.
The prosecution has suggested that Stormy Daniels, the adult film star and director who is at the center of this case in terms of the hush money payment to her, will be called to testify. Does that concern you at all?
Not particularly. I mean, look, pretty funny. The Ninth Circuit today added on to her tab of what she owes the president for breaching the non-disclosure agreement. But look, at the end of the day, Stormy Daniels looks like almost the credible witness. Michael Cohen is a convicted perjurer, disbarred lawyer, guy with an axe to grind. And, anybody that's even watched Law and Order once would love the opportunity to cross-examine that guy. So, they can put window dressing all around it and say, look, it's not just him, it's documents, it's Stormy, but it's him. It's Michael Cohen. It's a guy that basically, at least if you listen to Bob Costello, perjured himself in front of the grand jury again. And that shows you it's politically motivated. No reasonable prosecutor would go to bat with Michael Cohen as your star witness, but Alvin Bragg's not a reasonable prosecutor.
But is it not true that Michael Cohen brought documentation for the charges he's made, and those documentations are at the core of the 34-count indictment of Donald Trump, which I have yet to hear anybody dispute the facts in the indictment? I realize it's early yet, but as a matter of fact, it does appear that Michael Cohen was telling the truth on these hush money payments.
Well, you're making a little bit of a leap, but look, non-disclosure agreements, we can demonize it, say hush money, and talk about how salacious it is. If that was illegal, Congress would be in a lot of trouble, right? You've got an entire fund set up for congressional NDAs based on harassment. So it's not illegal to have it. Nobody's disputing whether there was a non-disclosure agreement. The Ninth Circuit just found out who violated it and has to pay attorney's costs. The issue is the credibility in terms of deciphering some sort of intent, looping some sort of federal felony into the case, and it's just not going to come together. It was a political promise Alvin Bragg made, and he's run through. If I wanted to point to a particular document that's significant, it would be the federal case against him. They had an interest in trying to make it into a federal prosecution. Nobody would ever accuse the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan of being afraid of going after Donald Trump. They set it up in his plea with a federal election violation as one of the charges, with all the other stuff that Cohen had been involved in. And then he failed as a cooperator. And they couldn't even give him the 5K departure. They couldn't even give him the credit for being an honest cooperator, and that case fell apart. So Alvin Bragg is picking up the trash that the U.S. Attorney's Office wouldn't touch, that his predecessor wouldn't touch, that he wouldn't even touch the first time. But now for whatever back channel reason, will be real interested in pushing for information about how he made this decision. Now we've got this case, we'll have to deal with it, but pretrial motion should be very powerful.
Just as a point of fact, I believe the issue is not whether or not an NDA is legal. It's the question about whether or not
it can
if
cover
you're
up an election,
paying somebody to be quiet because of an election, whether or not that counts as an election expense that needs to be counted as such. But let's move on, because I want to ask you, the next court appearance in this case is not until December. It's April now.
Jesus.
That's a considerable amount of time away. Are you concerned that it's so far away and that much closer to 2024? Would you like it to be moved up?
No. No, they don't.
Well, I'm not really, paid to be on the political side. I'm on the legal side, and so I don't want to speak out of turn. The only thing I would say is, because I think most of us anticipated an indictment that would have the frailties this one has, the idea of trying to expedite a motion to dismiss is not totally foreign. So we'll see. If we're stuck with December, we're stuck with December. But I know that the attorneys will get their heads together and figure out if there's a way to try to push this earlier. I think the December date is probably a pretty typical kind of auto-generated date when it comes to a new case coming in the door. But I like the idea of at least resolving some important motions to dismiss earlier rather than later, but we'll see.
All right, Trump attorney Jim Trusty, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
All right, good seeing you.
And Carrie Cordero, you heard Jim Trusty there talking about what he called the frailties of the case, what I've heard other people, including you, talk about, how strong this case may be or may not be. Your reaction now that you've had a chance to go through it, is it what you thought it was going to be, and are you unimpressed?
It is what I thought it was going to be in terms of focusing on the payments that were made, the falsification of the records, and really tied to the payment that was made to Stormy Daniels. In terms of a case that's being brought against a former president, it's a little underwhelming. There's not more to it. There's not
This doesn't
more
sound like a
violations,
political hit job at all.
violations.
Not a Trump fan, but this is the third time they've used political power and positions to go after him. Dems get away with abuse of power more.
It's really the facts of this case.
If it's illegal, it's illegal.
For basically almost
If
7 years.
And we've known about quite a bit of this. Anderson interviewed Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal years ago.
Right.
And we knew about this as well as the payments.
So the facts are almost 7 years long, and the facts are pretty stale. And what the DA's office has done is put that together in a theory of the fact that the former president falsified his business records in order to enable that payment to be made to her. To the extent that the documents appear to link that to the effect that it would have theoretically had on the 2016 election, brings into the picture then whether or not the DA's office is really arguing that this was campaign finance violations, which is something that the U.S. Justice Department never charged with respect to the former president himself. He was not charged with campaign finance violations. So that is probably the basis upon which the former president's defense attorneys are going to make a number of motions and legal arguments.
Yeah, let me bring in Caitlin Collins, who's been in the court building all day. And Caitlin, tell us about what happened in that room when the judge spoke to the attorneys.
Well, it's such a remarkable moment. We were wondering what was going on for so long. The Trump attorneys had predicted it'd be about a 30-minute hearing in there. Obviously, it went longer than that. And when those 3 defense attorneys came out, including the newest member of the team, Todd Blanche, who spoke first, as you saw when he came out and he was speaking there with reporters. Excuse me, Jake, obviously we're sitting right outside the courthouse. It's a little bit loud over here. Todd Blanche came out and he was arguing that he believed it was boilerplate language in this indictment, that nothing really surprised him. But the conversation quickly turned and the questions to those attorneys to the former president's social media post about this case, which we know they spent time on with the judge there in the room behind closed doors, because Trump has posted in recent days about the judge himself claiming in all caps letters that he hates him, criticizing, of course, over how he presided over the Alan Weisselberg case. That was the chief financial officer
Where's
for the
Pisco?
Trump organization.
Annapolis,
He is also
where all of our
obviously
lawyer
gone
people
after
at.
the district attorney in this case, Alvin Bragg, calling him an animal, calling him a racist, attacking him at length. And also, there was the question about that post that Trump had posted on Truth Social, which included a link to a photo of Alvin Bragg next to a photo of Trump holding a
I just want to know who
baseball
Lawyer
bat and a photo from his
C
time at the
is.
White House.
I'm
It was
pretty
just remarkable
sure
to
Lawyer
see
D, it
those
looks like
three
reading
Trump
this
attorneys
is
spending a lengthy amount of
potentially
time right after they got out of the courthouse
Giuliani,
where their client
but I'm
just
not quite
pleaded
sure.
not guilty,
Do you know if,
defending his social media post. You heard Joe Tacopina
Wait, so
saying,
do you
he
know,
wasn't
is it a
swinging the baseball
crime
bat.
to try to pay to cover up something that could influence an election? Is that a crime?
Ooh. I don't know off the top of my head,
We'll go look it up.
but okay.
You're a resident researcher now. DA is speaking on MSNBC.
Reporting for duty.
Today.
Oh.
Earlier this afternoon, Donald Trump was arraigned on a New York Supreme Court indictment returned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State,
Yep, from both.
no matter who you are. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
Just turtle up on the.
The defendant repeatedly
west and
made
turtle up.
false statements on New York business records. He also caused others to make false statements. The defendant claimed that he was paying Michael Cohen for legal services performed in 2017. This simply was not true. And it was a false statement that the defendant made month after month in 2017. April, May, June, and so on through the rest of the year. For 9 straight months, the defendant held documents in his hand containing this key lie, that he was paying Michael Cohen for legal services performed in 2017. And he personally signed checks for payments to Michael Cohen for each of these 9 months. In total, the grand jury found there were 34 documents with this critical false statement. Why did Donald Trump repeatedly make these false statements? The evidence will show that he did so to cover up crimes relating to the 2016 election. Donald Trump, executives at the publishing company American Media Incorporated, Mr. Cohen, and others agreed in 2015 to a catch and kill scheme. That is, a scheme to buy and suppress negative information to help Mr. Trump's chance of winning the election. As part of this scheme, Donald Trump and others made 3 payments to people who claimed to have negative information about Mr. Trump. To make these payments, they set up shell companies, and they made yet more false statements, including, for example, in AMI, American Media Incorporated's business records. One of the 3 people that they paid to keep quiet was a woman named Stormy Daniels. Less than 2 weeks before the presidential election, Michael Cohen wired $130,000 to Stormy Daniels' lawyer. That payment was to hide damaging information from the voting public. The participant scheme was illegal. The scheme violated New York election law, which makes it a crime to conspire to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. The $130,000 wire payment exceeded the federal campaign contribution cap, and the false statements in AMI's books violated New York law. That is why Mr. Trump made false statements about his payments to Mr. Cohen. He could not simply say that the payments were a reimbursement for Mr. Cohen's payments to Stormy Daniels. To do so, to make that true statement, would have been to admit a crime. So instead, Mr. Trump said that
there we go.
He was paying Mr. Cohen for fictitious...
I think it's late enough to go check out... Huh. Oh, nothing new.
...legal services in 2017 to cover up actual crime committed the prior year. And in order to get Michael Cohen his money back, they planned one last false statement. In order to complete the scheme, they planned to mischaracterize the repayments to Mr. Cohen as income to the New York State tax authorities. The conduct I just described, and that which was charged by the grand jury, is felony criminal conduct in New York State. True and accurate business records are important everywhere, to be sure. They are all the more important in Manhattan, the financial center of the world. That is why we have a history in the Manhattan DA's office of vigorously enforcing white-collar crime. My office, including the talented prosecutors you saw at arraignment earlier today, has charged hundreds of felony falsifying business records. This charge, it can be said, is the bread and butter of our white-collar work. And fraud presents itself in all different forms here in Manhattan. We have charged falsifying business records for those who violated federal bank secrecy laws. We have charged falsifying business records for those who were seeking to cover up sex crimes. And we have brought this charge for those who committed tax violations. At its core, this case today is one with allegations like so many of our white-collar cases. Allegations that someone lied again and again to protect their interests and evade the laws to which we are all held accountable. As this office has done time and time again, we today uphold our solemn responsibility to ensure that everyone stands equal before the law. No amount of money and no amount of power changes that enduring American principle. I'll now take questions.
Yeah, that's fine. We all know that that's bullshit.
One question to the reporter. I will call on you. And again, we have limited time. Thank you. The first question will be Rick.
Thank you for taking us to CNN. Why now? I mean, some argue that this is a political move. You're not
I swear to God, if they come from there, I'm
if we're going to go into
Jesus Christ. Might as well just... Do they move to the hangar?
A thorough and rigorous investigation as we're going to do at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I've been doing this for 24 years and am no stranger to rigorous, complex investigations. I bring cases when they're ready. Having now conducted a rigorous, thorough investigation, the case was ready to be brought, and it was brought.
Mr. Bragg, the indictment says that there were 34 false business records. And they were done concealed another crime, but the indictment does not
Motherfucker, that is where
what those crimes were. We are assuming, perhaps, that they might be election-related. I'm wondering if you can specify what laws were also broken.
Right. So let me say as an initial matter that the indictment doesn't specify that because the law does not so require. In my remarks, I mentioned a couple of laws which I will highlight again now. The first is New York State election law, which makes it a crime to conspire to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. I further indicated a number of unlawful means, including more additional false statements, including statements that were planned to be made to tax authorities. I also noted the federal election law cap on contribution limits.
But why weren't there those crimes charged? Why wasn't he charged with those crimes?
Well, I'm not going to go into our deliberative process on what was brought. The charges that were brought were the ones that were brought. The evidence in the law is the basis for those decisions.
Hi,
FDA. You had expressed a year ago that you had some reservations about the case's readiness. Can you talk to us about what were some of the questions in your mind that needed to be answered in order to bring a case of this magnitude?
I'm not going to go chapter and verse into any thinking. What I will say is, I believe the time period you're talking about, I've been in office for a couple of months. The investigation, in my view, was not concluded into the conduct in particular that is the basis for the charges today. Since that time, we've had more evidence made available to the office and opportunity to meet with additional witnesses. So, as I said earlier, I've been doing this for 24 years. I don't bring cases prior to a thorough and rigorous investigation. Now, having done so, the case has been brought.
Mr. Bragg, Garrett Haake with NBC News. Your predecessor took a hard look at this case and decided not to charge it. Federal prosecutors took a hard look at this case and decided not to charge it. Do you believe you have new evidence that led you to decide to charge this, or why now?
Well, as I just mentioned, we have had available to the office additional evidence that was not in the office's possession prior to my time here. And as to your part of your question about the federal, we have a distinct and strong, I would say profound, independent interest in New York State. This is the business capital of the world. We regularly do cases involving false business statements. The bedrock, in fact, the basis for business integrity and a well-functioning business marketplace is true and accurate record keeping. That's the charge that's brought here, falsifying New York State business records.
Thank you. DA Bragg, I'm just going to read back one line from your statement of facts. The participants also took steps that mischaracterized for tax purposes the true nature of payments and furtherance of the scheme. Do you allege former President Trump was one of the participants who mischaracterized the payments for tax purposes?
I'm not going to go beyond the plain language statement of facts, which I think speaks for itself.
Brad, can you please comment on the strength of the evidence that Trump personally intended violating state election law, including actions that are charged in the indictment?
So the charge is falsifying business records. The charge requires, as I specified, criminal conduct that was concealed. One of the concealed crimes we allege is New York State election law. I sort of went through in our statement of facts, which I think many of you have in front of you, goes through things including, text messages, emails, contemporaneous phone records, multiple witnesses. All of that will be, as you saw in the fall, borne out in a public courtroom in downtown Manhattan.
Our last question is Jonah.
DA Bragg, the charges related to the hush money payments is from
it looks like those
released from your office. Also mentions another woman, Karen McDougal, as well as a doorman. Can you comment on how those players are related to the charges you've brought or to the case overall?
I'm glad you put your finger on that, because it's not just about one payment. It is 34 business records, 34 false statements in business records that were concealing criminal conduct. And the earlier question about New York State election law, when I talked about conspiracy to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. Those unlawful means, we allege, include the conduct set forth in the statement of facts, which is additional false statements separate and apart from the charged ones in AMI documents, planned false statements to taxing authorities. It is not just that $130,000 wire payment. Thanks so much.
Any comment about any incitement of violence by former president?
At what point do you think that order is necessary?
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg holding a short news conference, shedding a little more light on the thinking behind this indictment against 34 charges against former President Trump related to falsifying business records. And let me go around the horn here with our panelists. Laura, first of all, this is now hinging, it sounds like, on a state crime that makes it a felony, not a federal crime,
of what I thought
as we had anticipated.
Well, he mentioned federal crimes too. Obviously, there's
and that gives a little bit more insight.
Limits on that amount.
Is less surprising, especially what Bragg had to say is kind of more on the line of what I was kind of expecting him to say, which is not so much a surprise. That New York election law that he's charging is the basis for all of this seems to be very vague, but it is an actual law about promotion of candidates or trying to prevent elections. I don't know what the statute of limitations are on that. I'd have to look it up more succinctly, but yeah, it's he's going for the broader kind of conspiracy issue with AMI. So
connecting it to the he said they have new evidence, I guess, that federal prosecutors didn't have, and it's connected to a state law. Federal prosecutors aren't generally going to prosecute for state laws, right?
Yeah, they're not, unless there's some sort of federal component to it. Now, they might, as part of like some sort of federal prosecution for election fraud at the federal level, to say like, okay, your falsification of these business records at the state level constitutes a violation of federal election law because you didn't properly disclose these payments as related to the election and you hid them as typical business payments. But you're dealing with some weird stuff at that point, and there's a reason why the feds have kind of been skittish on bringing this, but I don't think maybe they had the same access to information. I'd be interested to
that's the thing, is the new evidence. I wonder how compelling the new evidence they found was.
Yeah, my question is going to be, how does this play out in the longer term with the AMI stuff, and whether or not that potentially has any play with other investigations related to any sort of election fraud on his part. Does this play also potentially, I don't want to say into Georgia, but does this underlie other behaviors that they might want to look closer at AMI for in relation to Donald Trump and what he may have said during the 2016 election?
Like, give an example of that. What do you mean?
Any sort of negative press about other candidates or something like that that may have ran during the 2016 election about Hillary or other potential primary opponents.
Is that illegal on federal or state levels to pay a publication to run negative stories about somebody?
Well, generally speaking, yes, but also the issue would be how is that characterized from the federal election expenditures? That's usually what it comes down to, right? There's a lot that you can pay for federal election stuff. This goes back to a lot of people pushing back on these charges, specifically using John Edwards as an example, because he also paid a woman during his presidential campaign that he had an affair with to keep quiet, and paid off using AMI in the past as far as negative stories about himself or to promote stories about others that might lie into some sort of other business records issues, other tax fraud issues, that sort of thing.
I read that in my statute of limitations.
Because there's also potentially now a federal component for tax fraud on this too.
These charges are fair game.
If he's mischaracterizing these payments and the feds and the IRS agrees that these are mischaracterized payments, that you're not properly disclosing them, could that be? Or if you're trying to take them, for instance, if you're trying to take them as business expenses for tax deduction purposes, and they're clearly not business expenses.
What's our max charges here for stuff like this?
Yeah, well, for the business records, for all the felony is a Class E felony, so I think it's 4 years is what I've been hearing.
Okay.
So 4 years for each charge would be the maximum. So it's
is
like
that normally served concurrently, or?
I have no idea. That's a more of a New York law question. I'm unfortunately not a New York attorney, so I don't know their system as well as a New York attorney would. But concurrently, probably. I would be remiss to see that they're going to sit there and be like, you've got to serve them subsequently to one another.
80 years in jail for falsifying 10 tax.
Yeah, I don't even. It's also going to be super interesting on the statute of limitations for this one, because that's another argument that has to come into play, because there's an argument that you can't indict a sitting president, but there's still the statute of limitations. So nobody's ever ruled on something like this before, whether or not his presidency has an effect on the statute of limitations. Because if it doesn't, then arguably one of the things that they were talking about doing is, dismissing on the statute of limitations.
Well, if this has been upgraded to dealing with the felony stuff, though, right? Statute of limitations haven't expired yet, have they?
I'm not an expert, so I would have to. I believe the statute of limitations, from what I've seen from the news, is that it's 5 years. So if these were made in...
Yeah, but it's only 5 years if it wasn't done, if these, like, falsifying of records wasn't done in the commission of another crime, right? I thought it was the commission of another crime thing that upgrades the statute of limitations on this.
Yeah, it might, yes. But then again, the statute of limitations, since they are going for New York state election law, they might be able to get it that way. Mm-hmm. I know when they were talking about possibly looping it into... hold on.
Okay.
He doesn't know he can put gates over the
looping it into the federal level. That is where there was an issue as to whether or not that would hold true, because you'd be talking about federal election laws being enforced by a state. But because they found this kind of one-off law, which is like super vague, we're gonna see. But I'm looking mostly towards, as far as the details on statute of limitations, towards people who are far more knowledgeable in New York state law than I am. So that's it. I mean, it'll be super interesting. They're not going the federal route, which is going to be more difficult for Trump to dismiss. Because of the fact that you're now dealing with a state election law as the underlying crime that they're trying to tie everything into. So we'll see how that all handles out. But yeah, I mean, this is just prime bait for a lot of people to speculate on for the next couple of months, at least until things shake out. We'll see if he gets in trouble with the judge over the gag order tonight. That'll be super interesting to see.
Wait, I think they said there was no gag order.
Well, I shouldn't say the gag order. You're correct.
You mean over him just judges, not like insulting or threatening family members and shit on social media, right?
Yeah, the judge's instructions regarding social media. And what was interesting and that I found about what was said is the judge applied it both to the witnesses for the prosecution as well as to Trump. So they're talking about some of the stuff that Michael Cohen said and Stormy Daniels have said. Like, they're trying to rein everybody in. Which should help, but we'll see if it does anything for Trump. So that's about it.
Okay. Well,
all right.
Be careful.
See ya.
What a day, guys.
That you can.
How does it become a tested legal theory?
No, if anything, I think this makes it a little bit more complicated and a little bit tricky for him. Generally, federal election law issues are prosecuted by federal prosecutors, and there is going to be a swift motion to dismiss, I would predict, if in short order, from the former president's lawyers saying all of this should be preempted by federal law, meaning that this should have been brought by federal prosecutors, not by a state district attorney in Manhattan. Now, whether that will succeed remains to be seen. You see the district attorney saying, look, we brought plenty
of... your personal thoughts so far? Oh, hi. I'm curious what the history is for the enforcement of the paying for election information, or I'm sorry, paying to suppress information on an election. Like, is this a very strong law that gets enforced often? Is this the first time there's ever been a charge for this? I think that's a pretty important question to ask. I mean, if he did falsify records over trying to pay people off to not publish negative information about him, and if that is indeed like a state crime relating to elections in New York, now the question becomes, like, is this like standard practice? Have a lot of people participated in this and never been busted for it, and Trump is the first one because this DA just really doesn't like Trump? This is obviously like the most important question, or this is like one of the most important questions, right? Because the worry, or the thing that Republicans are saying, obviously, like, oh, this is all political, like this isn't even a real thing, like nobody cares, and they'd have more credence to that if it was the case that like nobody's ever been charged with this crime before, and it kind of looks bad if you're creating new crimes or like not enforcing novel crimes on a guy that's so politically unpopular, you know? Or unpopular with you for political reasons, maybe I should say. Bro, okay, this game, if this game is gonna have maps like this, it needs to have like a speed up function. It's a little wacky that I have one wave on day 57.
That looks like a new character.
That's pretty wacky.
Oh, no, never mind.
False business record case, he's saying it's bread and butter. He hasn't brought one like this where you've actually obtained a jury conviction. It's gone up on appeal where it's been tested. That's why people say it's been untested. Even if they've charged false business records cases before, they haven't used a case, they haven't used a federal election law as the hook where that's been upheld but on appeal, where you can actually see a court saying, yes, this is okay. We give this the stamp of authority. It was interesting to hear him say that the law doesn't actually require that the indictment have the conspiracy and all of the other election issues pled as separate counts. Again, remains to be seen how the courts test that out, how they evaluate something like that. At the beginning of his remarks, I was struck by how much he's trying to emphasize nobody is above the law. You hear prosecutors say that all the time. But of course, in a case like this, with a defendant like this, he seemed to want to stake the ground that this is not something that I did because of who the president is, almost sort of implicitly.
That is true, but have you seen the polling showing people on both sides, Dems and Rips, view what he did as criminal? If you take out the names, Trump and Daniels, not the public opinion in terms of criminality, but neutrally speaking, the charge has legitimacy. Oh, I haven't seen that. If those posts exist, you should link them. That'd be very interesting. The feeling that I have on just a gut feeling is that it's pretty bad. What he did is pretty bad. If you are buying off negative stories ahead of an election, that feels pretty bad. That feels like something that should be pretty illegal. That feels like something that should be pretty illegal.
But bombing kids in Iraq feels perfectly legal.
But again,
president should be able to do that all day long.
Has anybody ever been charged with this before is pretty important. Or has this electioneering angle been used to upgrade these particular charges before ever happened before? If it's a novel application of the law, then that kind of feels pretty shitty if we're getting a novel application of the law on a historically unpopular guy, right? Because that's always going to feel political. That's the issue. What's up, Ayla? Aha, Ayla, the next bridge burner. Haha, have we taken poll? Is there a mana market on how that's going to happen? To be fair, isn't this a president-only thing? Well, theoretically, no, any politician could buy off shit like this, right? Theoretically.
Oh, there was that red mushroom thing. I need to find a red mushroom. Might be too late.
It doesn't just feel political, it is political, come on. What do you mean, it is political, come on? Like, it's so obvious. Do you think that there haven't been any laws broken? Do you think that they just lied about everything they said? If you're gonna make the statement it's political, you're gonna have to like work your brain a little bit to say that it's political. You can't just say it's political because I like Donald Trump. You can't charge my guy with crime. What about Obama? Drones in Yemen. Like, if you're gonna say it's political, fine, but you need to demonstrate why this particular charge is not good. And it seems like, assuming everything they've done on the indictment is true, and assuming the statement of fact is correct, it feels pretty shitty. Happening to them in 2011.
Yeah, but at least no one
John
died.
Edwards thing, or oh yeah.
Oh. So there's 5 people I've not found. I've already done him. Oh, that's not happening.
Okay, hold on, give me a sec. Let me read something on old Dragon Callers. One thing I've heard is that Hillary had some similar mislabeled campaign payments that she and her campaign were merely fined for. I would need to see what those are. That'd be interesting to compare.
move speed still so. Kind of faster travel style.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
What's up?
Hi. Are we doing that thing where you only talk about the current topic that you're looking at on stream, or can I talk about literally anything?
You got 2 minutes to talk about literally anything. What do you want?
So the first, then I'll keep this one short. I'll talk about the other thing some other time.
Okay.
I want to advocate for a fellow DGGer, Irish with some sun. She was banned on the subreddit about 4 or 5 months ago for memeing too close to the sun.
Wait.
Something about you know, screwing up things with Lav because of a Coomer brain, but she made a comment under that very post that it was a meme, and she knows it didn't have anything to do with Coomerisms, and I don't know if you didn't see that comment, but yeah, if you could unban her, it'd be nice. She used to post nice art, and you know, there were nice friendly presents in the subreddit.
Wait, did I actually permaban him over that, or?
I think I haven't seen them since then, and in the comments they did note that they were banned.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. I'll think about it. He should just email me. He's emailed me before. I don't know why. You don't need to advocate for him. I'm pretty sure he's one of my YouTube mods.
Yeah, I know. I was just wondering if there was any movement there. So yeah,
no,
that's all.
We haven't. It's working in the back end. You know, my org is processing it. We're seeing what we're gonna do for that. Okay.
Well, it's a slow ass process. Speed it up. Jesus fucking Christ.
Okay, I'll think about it. Have fun.
So bye.
Bye.
How do you fucking leave this?
Isn't it a girl? No, the Irish person.
That makes that
they just use a
easier.
girl avatar everywhere. I don't know why. Barnes, hello.
Oh, my energy is maxed. How'd that happen?
Yeah. Damn, are you blazing?
No.
Oh.
I think I have like a little cold, so I might sound sick.
Me
and I'm also
too,
playing
brother.
Minecraft, so.
I'm going to.
Yeah,
No, I'm
what's
going to.
Okay, I guess
2 more trees, then go out into the village.
Do you like reading? Do you ever read?
No, I don't know how. What's up?
You don't know how to read.
We'll just ask your question.
Okay,
in these quest statements, do you ever do reading?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I do coke, weed, and MDMA. That's what I do. Okay. What's your
I'm
question?
a student, right? I study philosophy and political science.
Cringe on both counts. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm curious to how to take notes in a good way. Like, I feel like I take decent notes, but most of the time I find myself just like copy and pasting selections of the text, and I don't feel like that's the most productive thing to do. So
I have no fucking idea. I was a horrible note taker in school. I'm basically bad at everything related to school, so I can't help you with that at all.
Okay.
Can't you Google like how to take good notes? There's got to be people that, or find the best students in your class and ask them what do their notes look like.
That's true. Well, I'm one of the best students, you know. So.
Well, then why the fuck are you asking me?
Because I don't want to waste time. Like, if it takes me like 3 or 4 hours to type notes or to take notes, it's like, holy shit, I'm wasting so much time. I could be playing Minecraft or League.
What year are you?
3rd year.
In college?
Yeah.
Just keep doing your shit. You're gonna graduate soon. Who the fuck cares? At this point, you probably got it figured out. I imagine if you're doing decently in school, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just a waste of time.
Geo.
I got other things to study for. I'm trying to take the LSAT next year. So like, if I'm wasting too much time taking notes on textbooks, whatever.
You're like a fucking philosophy poli-sci undergrad. How much do you have to study for the fucking LSAT?
I mean, I guess, yeah, that's a good point. But you still, I don't know, I still feel like it's good to study, right? I'm trying to get a good score. I want to go to a good school.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
We're all cheering for you. Good luck, buddy, okay?
Alright, thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Bye.
Jesus. You guys.
There's Penny.
Hello, Chuck.
Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hey, nice to hear from you. I'm going to the debate in Tennessee. I was wondering if I could stream before and after, like during that meet and greet.
If you could stream or if I could stream?
If I could stream like around the meet and greet.
I don't know. Why are you are you asking if you're allowed to, or if you should, or?
I don't know if you
that
if you're not against it. I already talked to the people there, and I got like a media pass, so I was just wondering.
If you have a media pass, what the fuck would you ask me? No, you're not allowed to. Fuck you and fuck your media pass. No, yeah, of course you can. Why not?
Okay.
What do you think happens at these meetings? You're acting like it's like a Balenciaga fucking satanistic like rape event or something. Jesus, yeah.
I don't know, man. It seemed like it was pretty official. I didn't want to, be dragged away by security.
No, you'll be good. I mean, as long as you're not gonna wait. What do you do on Saturdays and Sundays?
Depends who's asking. If it's in private.
Well, are you religious at all?
There's my
I mean, I was raised Roman Catholic, so.
Okay, yeah, we're chill. All right, yeah, it should be fun.
Anyway, yeah. So from that discussion you had with Alex, I don't know. It just seems like there's like a common thing right now where people are like pissed off about the economy, so they're finding ways to want to not support Ukraine conflict. So I don't know. I feel like
it's all post hoc. Our funds are not. It's not like oh my god, like we were just about to save all the homeless people and then Ukraine happened. Like it's the biggest virtue signal shit in the world. I don't believe any of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. There's just people like coming from that side are like, oh, this is a nuclear like I really doubt that there's a good reason
4
for
days
people
left,
to
Destiny.
think that there's gonna be a nuclear event in any case. It's just people like.
I mean, probably not. But I mean, it is kind of spooky, but probably not.
And other than that, I kind of wish Dan was here. I'm into cars and actually just got a new job coming.
Dan doesn't know shit about cars, so you're super lucky that he's not here because all he would do is lead you astray. So
I know. I kind of just wanted to kind of trash on him because he was like talking about getting a sports car like a Ferrari or something, and then he decided on a G-Wagon, which is like a little more his speed.
Dan's like a good V6, V8 SUV kind of guy. That's what he's like. Like he puts it in sport and he zooms around with his kids like soccer gear in the trunk. Like that's kind of.
I know he was like complaining that the G-Wagon's a mom car now, but I mean that's kind of what he does, right?
That is basically. Not really yeah, true. I agree 100% actually with that. Dan is kind of like a mom. Yeah.
They say Rune Factory 5 was bad, but
I was gonna ask
so much more streamlined than this.
Do you have like really bad takes in food and movies just to like make your political takes seem more legitimate?
Name one bad take for food or movies. Name one. You're not even going to a single one.
Pepperoni pizza is like hurts your mouth or something?
It's just pepperoni is dog shit because pepperoni drags all the other toppings of the fucking pizza. It's a dog shit topping. It's just not good.
You just get one topping. What, are you the type of person to get like 7
Wow,
toppings
no wonder they say his food
I'm gonna
takes
get like
bad.
2 or 3 at least. Okay, yeah.
All right, well,
I'm a supreme guy by myself.
It's like the surface area of it is so fucking huge. It's like it's not a great topping. You know what's good? You know what good pepperoni is? It's the very little like thumbed inside out pepperonis. I don't know what those are called. Those are legit. I'll eat those pepperonis, okay? But the big, weak, massive fucking slobs of bologna that they just throw on and call it pepperoni is just cringe. It's actually cringe. The people like you would actually defend that dog shit. You should actually be ashamed of yourself.
Well, I mean, I came from like New England, where all the good pizza is in America, so I don't know.
Wow, really? That's crazy because I've been to New England a ton. Where do you guys hide it? Because you don't sell it in any of your fucking pizza places.
Connecticut. Have you ever heard of Pepe's? Pepe Wins, the rated #1 pizza in the country.
Yeah, was it? I bet the Pepe Wins people. Yeah, I bet they love cheese pizza.
All right,
that's all they eat.
I'm going to.